Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet, The John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. And happy Monday, everybody. It's the start of a brand new week for you to go out and conquer. And yes, and I'm actually flying solo today. Chris Carr is on vacation this week. Her and her husband are off on the East Coast. And Robert Meyer Burnett was going to be here today, but late last night, he texted me a commercial job came up for him today. So he's not here today, but don't worry, he'll be back tomorrow and Wednesday before we leave for Comic-Con. Then Robert and I will both be out at Comic-Con. And I hope you guys, a lot of you guys, are going to be coming out to Comic-Con. And if you are, let me take this moment here just to plug this quick. If you are coming out to Comic-Con, don't forget, guys, my annual Masters of the Web panel. This year, the panel is called After Endgame, Where Does the Comic Book Genre Go From Here? And that panel is going to be on Friday, the Friday of Comic-Con. So that's this coming Friday at 11 a.m. at the library. So you can find us in the program guide at Comic-Con there. And of course, joining me this year on the panel, of course, there's myself. There's the wonderful Kyle Newman, director of Fanboys and a bunch of other things, and just wrote my favorite Dungeons and Dragons book of all time. We've got, of course, Christian Harloff from the Schmodown and Chris Gore from Film Threat joining us as the four of us discuss and talk about, now that Endgame is done, what new challenges? What does the landscape of the comic book genre look like now that you've kind of had this fulfillment of the promise of comic book movies in Endgame? Now where do you go? What can you do now that doesn't seem like been there, done that before? What types of new angles and new directions could the comic book genre be going? What does the comic book genre need to do at this point to continue to grow? Or are we going to naturally head into a period where it starts to decline a bit? These are things we're going to be talking about this year, and I do hope you join us. And by the way, if you're on the fence about joining us, understand this: the panel is not being streamed. This panel is not going to be on YouTube afterwards. So if you're in San Diego, please come down and join us for that. Okay, guys, with all that down, we've got a bunch of things to talk about here today. Scarlett Johansson has made some controversial remarks, but then also walked those remarks back. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Spider-Man dominates the box office. Once again, we're going to talk about that a little bit. We've got a new 007. Maybe we're going to talk about that in a second too. But before we get to all that stuff, let's go right off the top with this. We've all known for some time that there was a brand new Kingsman movie coming. We've known that Matthew Vaughn was going to be making a prequel movie to the Kingsman movies. Now, if you're like me, you love the first Kingsman. I adored the first Kingsman. It was one of the most pleasant surprises, because I wasn't expecting much out of that Kingsman movie. Went into it, just fell in love with it. So I was really excited about the second one, and quite frankly, I don't think the second one was even a good movie at all. I thought it was a poor movie. Not the worst movie I've ever seen, but I thought Kingsman 2 was pretty bad. So my expectations have been tempered about, frankly, I haven't even really been looking forward to a new Kingsman. I know Matthew Vaughn's been working it, and I love Matthew Vaughn, but I haven't even been looking forward to this one. Well, anyway, guys, the first trailer, the first teaser for, it's not Kingsman, it's now The Kingsman is the name of the movie, and it is a prequel, obviously, to the Kingsman movies. The first teaser trailer for it dropped this morning, and I gotta say this, it looks a lot different than what I was expecting. It looks a lot more like what I kind of was hoping that the second Kingsman movie would be, a little bit more gritty, still have the fun element to it, still have the humor, still have the comedy, but maybe a little grittier, a little whatever. And unfortunately for me, Kingsman 2 just devolved into pure slapstick comedy. And that for me didn't work for whatever reason. Slapstick comedy can work. It didn't work for me in a Kingsman film. But this new trailer came out, and it looks more gritty, and it doesn't hurt that you've probably got one of the absolute best actors on the planet in Ralph Fiennes leading this thing, which is, I mean, always good. So you got Ralph Fiennes in there. Apparently Aaron Taylor Johnson here, Matthew Good, Gemma Arterton is in there, Tom Hollander, Djimon Hounsou. I'm always love Djimon Hounsou. Stanley Tucci's in there. Rhys Ifans is in there. Daniel Bruhl is in there. So he's got this coming up, and he's got that Falcon and Winter Soldier series coming up. It's a tremendous cast. But anyway, they also dropped their first little synopsis of the film. And here's how they're describing the upcoming The Kingsman. As a collection of history's worst tyrants and criminal masterminds gather to plot a war to wipe out millions, one man must race against time to stop them, discover the origins of the very first independent intelligence agency in The King's Man. And of course, you've got the great Ralph Fiennes there, who is just simply, I mean, I've said it a few times already, he's simply one of the best actors on the planet. So I love it whenever I get to see this guy. And I got to tell you what, I said before, I have not been really looking forward to this movie. This trailer has got me intrigued. It's just a teaser. It doesn't give us much. But if all it's doing is just giving us a little bit of a taste of the flavor of the movie, a little bit of the tone of the movie, chalk me up to being intrigued. I'm not going to say yet that I've gone all the way from being disinterested in the movie to now I'm dying to see it. Not yet. But I have gone from being disinterested to being, you know what, pretty intrigued. Because this trailer has surprised me. It's not what I thought they were going to do. It's almost as if, and it's way too early to say this for sure, but it's almost as if Matthew Vaughn heard the criticisms for Kingsman 2 and decided to make some course correction on it. Because I think even he knows he went a little too far with Kingsman 2 to the point that it just lost its enjoyability. And I know there's probably a number of you that did enjoy the second Kingsman movie, and that's great. That's the subjectivity of film. But for me, it took what was good about the first one and devalued it, and took a few weaknesses from the first one and really heightened the weaknesses in the second one. So this kind of feels to me like he's done a little bit of a course correction. And if that's true, and it's far too early to tell if it is or not, but if that's true, again, mark me down as being intrigued. Have you guys had a chance to see this new trailer for The King's Man? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know what you guys think of it. Okay, with that down and out of the way, let's move on to this next little thing off the top. You know, speaking of movies that we've been looking forward to seeing, one of them has got to be It Chapter 2. The first It film, talking about surprises like the first Kingsman, the first It film came out of nowhere. Came out of nowhere. It's like, wait a minute, that old horror novel with Stephen King, that the one they did the miniseries for, you're making a feature film out of that? Came out, everybody adored it, sets all kinds of box office records, you know, all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, we've got the new one coming out in just a couple of months now. The first couple of teasers and spots have come out. It looks remarkable. I think this thing looks great. I think it looks better, and I think it'll be even better than It Chapter 1. Don't know that for sure. We're just speculating. But I'm feeling like this one's going to be even better than It Chapter 1, and I'm very excited for it. So as we're starting to get into, you know, we're within a couple of months of the movie coming out. We're at that place now where early tracking numbers are starting to come out. And right now, the early tracking numbers for It Chapter 2 are huge for its opening weekend. Right now, the estimate from the industry is that It Chapter 2 can open from anywhere between $110 and $150 million. Understand that the box office website, Box Office Pro, not to be confused with Box Office Mojo, Box Office Pro has put out their first long-range tracking numbers on it, and they're pegging the new It Chapter 2, to open at $136 million. Why is that so significant? Well, for number one, that exceeds the opening weekend of what the original It did. But look at where it puts it in terms of all-time R-rated opening weekends. Right now, if you want to go down the list of the biggest R-rated opening weekends in history, at number one, you're looking at Deadpool at $132.4 million. Number two, Deadpool 2, Deadpool's ruling this thing, at $125.5 million. It, the first one, opened with $123.4 million, the biggest opening for R-rated horror film in film history. At number 4 right now is Matrix Reloaded at $91.7 million opening weekend. And at number 5, American Sniper at $89.2 million. So, put this in context. If It Chapter 2 actually opens with what Box Office Pro is tracking it at right now at 136. And remember, the industry range right now, they're saying is anywhere from 110 all the way up to 150. So if Box Office Pro is correct and It Chapter 2 opens to 136, well, now you're looking at the new biggest opening weekend in history for an R-rated film. Not just for an R-rated horror film, but the biggest opening weekend for any R-rated film in history. Now, of course, it's still early. That number could go up and down. We haven't heard if the movie is any good or not. We haven't heard any official word yet on whether this is a good movie, if this is a bad movie, whatever. That's going to play a lot into it. We're going to get more trailers. We're going to get more marketing spots, which will adjust our expectations at this point. So there's still a long way to go. But right now, it seems like the industry is calling that this is going to be the new biggest R-rated opening in history. What do you guys think about that? Do you think It Chapter 2 can actually climb that mountain and knock Deadpool off the #1 spot? Are you thinking this film is going to be as good as I think it is? Maybe you weren't all that impressed with the first It movie. I want to know what you guys think about that. Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with those two things out of the way, let's now move on to our main topics of the day. How do we select our main topics around here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. See, you guys come up with the main topics by going to www.thejahncampeashow.com/contact. Once you're there, fill out the form, putting in your topic or question and hit submit. And then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's now move on to our first main topic today. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Michael Serb, who writes, "Hey, John. Far From Home's budget was $160 million, but what really shocked me was that they spent $288 million on marketing Spider-Man. They spent more money on Far From Home than Disney spent on Endgame. Is this risk worth it?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, Michael. Appreciate that. And yeah, you guys read that right. There's a new report that's come out of I believe it was Deadline, put out this report talking about the marketing budget for Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, quite often, I often get people ask me, "John, that movie cost $100 million to make and it made $140 million. Why are you saying it lost money?" Because the marketing budget is something we often fail to take into consideration. Now, normally for a big Hollywood release, you're looking at anywhere from $40 to $100 million for the bigger films, maybe 150, blah, blah, blah. Endgame became astronomical, went north of $200 million on their marketing budget, whatever. So word now has come out that the marketing budget on Spider-Man Far From Home exceeded $288 million. Here's the report from Deadline on this. They wrote the following. Spider-Man Far From Home's promotional media campaign also set an industry record with $288 million in media value. That number blows away the $200+ million promo campaign of Disney/Marvel's Avengers Endgame. In total, Far From Home touts the largest multi-tiered promotional campaign ever compiled for a motion picture. The program created a 360 lifestyle experience for fans to interact with the franchise, where Spider-Man can be seen on Papa John's pizza boxes, flying in the safety video of United Airlines, on over 500 million Dr. Pepper cans and bottles, and inside Burger King's meal boxes, so on and so forth, on and on and on. This movie, Spider-Man Far From Home, has spent more money on marketing than any other film in history, including that of Avengers Endgame. And I gotta tell you, when this report came out, it kind of shocked the hell out of me. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of shocked the hell out of me. It really did. Because look, this is a big tentpole project for Sony, and it's Sony that did the marketing for this because they are the distributor. It's not done by Marvel or Disney. Sony shocked the hell out of me because I was expecting to hear a big marketing budget for a big tentpole film like this. No doubt, I wasn't going to be surprised by that. But $288 million. Now, how do I feel about that? Honestly, I'm totally good with that. I'm totally good with them spending $288 million on promoting this film. Now, some of you might be going, "But John, we've heard you say many times that you feel that Hollywood needs to start reeling in how much money they're spending on their movies, because the spending in the movies is getting completely spinning out of control, and that extra cost gets passed down to the moviegoers who have to pay more for their tickets to justify these studios spending so much money on making the damn movies. We've heard you say that, John. Understandably. Why then are you now saying that you're totally cool with Sony spending $288 million on marketing Spider-Man Far From Home?" And my answer to this, agree or disagree, my answer to that would be this. There's a difference between how much money you spend on making your movie and then how much you spend on marketing. You don't need to make, you'll never convince me you need to spend $250 million to make a movie. You'll never convince me of it. However, there is a direct correlation on return on investment, or ROI, between how much you invest in marketing a film and that having a direct impact on how much money then comes back in. You know, me and Rob have had this debate, and I've had this debate with a number of you guys online too. I remember when Avengers Endgame was coming out, there are some people insisting they don't even need to market Endgame. You don't need to market Endgame. You don't need to put out any trailers. You don't need to market it. It's going to be the biggest film ever without marketing. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. And you know who knows that? Disney knows that. You know who knows that? Marvel knows that. You know who knows that? Sony knows that. Because they know when they've got a movie that has such big potential, you can't actualize that potential unless you get out in front of it and market the hell out of it. Keep putting it in people's faces and all that kind of stuff. Because while it's true that there are people like me and you who are going to go see Endgame and probably going to go see Spider-Man Far From Home, regardless, the fact of the matter is that is not how the average moviegoer works. And 85% of the movie-going audience is the average moviegoer. So you want to bring them into these big tentpole films. You want to bring them in. And so I'm actually a lot more, what's the best word? Understanding of a studio wanting to just pour dollars into marketing a film. I'm far more understanding of that than I am with how much money they actually put in, because there's a direct correlation between the amount of marketing that you do and the effectiveness of your marketing. That you can't just throw money at marketing. You got to do an effective marketing campaign. There's a direct correlation between your marketing campaign and how many butts you get put into that seat. It's not the only factor. Not at all. I'm not suggesting that it is. But it is the biggest factor. And we've seen that play out time and time again. And the Hollywood studios know this. That's why we saw Marvel and Disney spending $200+ million on marketing Endgame. And look at the results. We're talking about a movie that's now within a hair of becoming the biggest all-time box office movie in history, because they went all in on their marketing budgets. Sony went all in on their marketing budget. And what's the result been? Spider-Man Far From Home is now the #1 movie in the world 2 weeks in a row. We're going to get into the box office a little bit later. But I believe there is a direct correlation between that. Now, you can make an argument of over marketing. But I only think over marketing comes into play when you're putting out too much footage. But when you're talking about the global campaign, how do you campaign this thing in Romania? How do you campaign this thing in England? How do you campaign this thing in China? How do you campaign this thing around the world? Putting images and everything on the pizza boxes. Millions of people fly on airlines. Put Spider-Man in their welcome video on United Airlines. Put them on soda cans. Put them on billboards. Put them all. Make everybody aware about this movie and what's coming. And the result has been overwhelming. The result has been overwhelming. And we'll get a little bit more into specific box office numbers for Spider-Man Far From Home. But we can say at this point, the box office numbers for Spider-Man Far From Home are a direct relation to not just coming off of Endgame and being a popular character, but they're some of the biggest numbers we've seen yet. And I think that's a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of it is chalked up to the very intelligent, calculated marketing campaign that Sony's put up for this thing. And that includes spending $288 million. Now, look, am I saying right now that every movie out there needs to spend close to $300 million to market their movies? No, I'm not saying that. Not every movie needs that. But not every movie has aspirations of being a $1 billion film. Not every movie has aspirations about being a $1.3 billion film. When you've got those aspirations, you're going to have to put your money behind your marketing, and Sony did that. And I think the results speak for themselves. And it's pretty damn good. So anyway, what did you guys think about that news upon hearing that Spider-Man Far From Home is the most expensive marketing campaign of all time? Smart move? Bad move? Did you guys notice it? Did you not notice it? Maybe they spent a lot of that money in overseas marketing, hence that's why we're getting such a bump overseas for it. Jump down to the comments section below and let me know what you guys think. All right, with that down out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Alexander Hampton, who writes, "Hey John, it's been confirmed." Huh? I think you mean, has it been confirmed? It's been confirmed. Hey, John, it's been confirmed that Lashana Lynch will play 007. What the hell? Don't get me wrong, I'm for inclusion and changing different things, and Lashana Lynch is an amazing actress, but I don't think this is a smart move to make her our new 007. Do you think that this is a smart move to make her our new 007? Thanks for taking my question. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Alexander, and this is the news that just started spreading like wildfire yesterday. I was at Disneyland yesterday, and all of a sudden, my phone starts blowing up with text messages and social media alerts, and my phone's ringing, blah, 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 blah. John, people were saying to me on text messages and social media, they've got a new James Bond. They got a new 007. And it's Lashana Lynch is going to be playing her. What's going on? Okay. For those of you just catching up on this right now, here's the official story that's going on. This is what's got everybody all excited right now, okay? This comes to us. Now, keep in mind the source of this. This is all coming from a report in the Daily Mail, which is not the most, when it comes to movie scoops, is not the most unreliable, but not the most reliable source out there. So just keep that in mind, okay? Not the most unreliable, but not the most reliable either. So just take that with a grain of salt. So here's what they're saying right now. In what's been called a popcorn dropping moment, British star Lashana Lynch will be given Bond's license to kill in the 25th movie in the franchise, currently being shot in Italy and the UK. However, traditionalists can relax. She's not the new Bond, but a new character who takes over his secret agent number after he leaves MI6. The story begins with Bond retired in Jamaica, but Spymaster M, played by Ralph Fiennes, who's got The King's Man coming up, we just saw him in that trailer this morning, calls him back in desperation to tackle a new global crisis. A movie insider said, there is a pivotal scene at the start of the film where M says, "Come in, 007, and in walks Lashana." All right, so we guys know Lashana Lynch. If not from anything else, you know her from Captain Marvel. She was, of course, Danvers' best friend, the pilot on Earth. I thought she was great in the movie. I thought she was great. Here's the problem. So as my phone is blowing up yesterday, I'm seeing a number of headlines saying Lashana Lynch is the new James Bond. And here's why, guys. None of this is important. None of this is important. All right? And here's why none of this is important. Again, understanding that this may not even be true because of where the news is coming from. Now, you may say, but John, I saw it on this website and this website and website. Yes, you did see it on a bunch of websites, but follow the source. Who are they saying they got that news from? And it all comes from the Daily Mail. So it may be true. It may not be true. Let's go on the assumption for a second that this is true. Let's just go for a moment on the assumption that this is true. It's not important. It's not important. John, you might say, how can you say a new 007 isn't important? Because it's not a new James Bond. Assuming for a moment that this report is true, even this report isn't saying that Lashana Lynch is the new James Bond. She's not. If the story of the movie is that this movie starts with James Bond in retirement, then guess what? Then his designation of 007 gets passed to another agent. It's just that simple. So if he's in retirement, that means there's going to be another 007. Their name isn't going to be James Bond, but there's going to be another 007. Somebody else takes over that designation. We've seen that happen before in the 00 movies, in the Bond movies, right? So the fact that there are some people getting freaked out about this, understandably so, because they think that this is the new James Bond. It's not. She's a completely separate character from James Bond. Daniel Craig is still our James Bond in this same movie. All right? She's just playing an agent who takes over the moniker of 007. That's it. And that's completely understandable. If that is the story, then it makes sense in the story that another agent, doesn't matter if they're white, black, Asian, Canadian, British, well, I guess they'd have to be British, male, female, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just another agent takes over the designation. So while everybody's getting all excited about this news, positively and negatively, getting negatively all riled up or getting positively excited. Well, a whole bunch of people are getting all excited about this and headlines are running all over the place. And hell, here I am talking about it. The reality is this isn't much of a story. One of these characters, if Bond is retired, the chances were another character that's going to be in this movie was going to get the 007 designation. It's not that important. It's not actually a very big deal at all. Now, look, if this movie ends with James Bond dying and they say, we're now going to call you, I don't know, Jasmine Bond. We're changing your name, 007, to Jasmine Bond to honor James Bond. Your name. Well, then we've got a story. Then there's something to talk about, and we can hash through that at the time. But why cross that bridge right now? Fact of the matter is, this isn't a big deal. It really doesn't mean anything at all, and it's just kind of makes sense and is consistent with what the narrative is right now. Remember, if you hear anybody else talking about this, just remind them, she's not the new James Bond in this movie. She's the new 007 because James Bond is retired and no longer uses the number. That's all this is right now. So let's just leave it at that until we see the movie and see if the movie makes a bigger deal out of it. But honestly, right now, I don't think they will. What do you guys think about all this? Do you think that maybe it's a bigger deal than I'm making it out to be about Lynch now playing the new 007? Or do you think, like me, that's much ado about nothing? Jump down to the comment section below, guys, and let me know what you think. All right. With that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets sent to us by Joshua Levisque, who writes, "Hey, John, huge fan for 5 years and appreciate all your hard work on the show." Thank you so much, Joshua. Did you see what Scarlett Johansson recently said in As If magazine? She talked about stepping down from the gender male lead in the Rub and Tug movie due to all the backlash. She even says she should be able to play any person, tree, or animal because that's my job. I love Scarlett as an actress, but I'm tired of the political correctness in Hollywood. What are your thoughts? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Joshua. And yes, so there's actually been a bunch of movement. For those of you who haven't heard about what's going on, there's been a bunch of things going on. Scarlett Johansson saying something, then clarifying, saying she was misquoted and giving her actual position on something, and it's been going back and forth. So what is all this, ruckus about at this point? Well, Scarlett Johansson was being interviewed. Now, you guys remember just a short while ago, she was going to be producing and starring in this movie called Rub and Tug, which was based on a true story about this person who was born as a woman, but she identified as a man. And it was got a mob story involved and all this kind of stuff. It was going to be the big protagonist. But then there was a lot of backlash against Scarlett Johansson because she was going to be playing a transgendered character when she herself is not a transgendered person. And a whole big debate ensued. And we'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, kind of reflecting back on that, this is what was quoted in her interview. All right. This is what was quoted. Scarlett Johansson was quoted as saying the following: as an actor, I should be allowed to play any person or any tree or any animal because that's my job and the requirements of my job. I feel like it's a trend in my business and it needs to happen for various social reasons. Yet there are times it does get uncomfortable when it affects the art because I feel art should be free of restrictions. So that's what she was quoted as saying in her interview. Now look, even before she clarifies her statements, I've got to tell you, and you may agree with me and you may disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm not going to like or dislike you based on whether you agree with me or disagree with me on this, but this is where my mind is on this right now. I think everything she just said in this quote as it is completely true. It's completely true. Now look, you guys know my position on this. I've said this many, many times. The job of every actor is to pretend that they are something that they are not. That's the job of every actor. You have a role, you're an actress and you just got cast in a role to play the mother of 3 children, and your husband was a former British agent and you're starting to suspect what's going on in his life. Guess what? The actress they cast will not literally be a mother of 2 who is actually married to a British spy and she's actually in her real life becoming suspicious. That actress is brought in to play something or somebody that she is not. That's what they do. In all the movies in history that have had an incarnation of Hitler, do you think that they went out, we are looking for an actual Nazi, a short Nazi who actually goes around wearing the little Hitler stash, who believes in Nazi propaganda, to come in and play Hitler because we need to make it authentic? No, they get an actor who is not actually a Nazi in real life to come in and play the role of Hitler. To that degree, I actually agree with everything that is being quoted by Scarlett Johansson here. Now, just to be clear here, though, Scarlett Johansson then came out and said that her remarks were edited for, as she calls it, clickbait, and they were taken out of context. Now, this comes to us from Deadline, okay? In Deadline, she goes on to say this: the question I was answering in my conversation with the contemporary artist David Sale was about the confrontation between political correctness and art. She said, I personally feel that in an ideal world, any actor should be able to play anybody, and art in all forms should be immune to political correctness. That is the point I was making, albeit didn't come across that way. I recognize that in reality, there is a widespread discrepancy among my industry that favors Caucasian cisgendered actors, and that not every actor has been given the same opportunities that I have been privileged to get. I continue to support, and always have, diversity in every industry, and will continue to fight for projects where everybody is included. So she was clearly making a point here that she was kind of misquoted a little bit, but still the underlying message there is the same. She is somebody who believes in diversity in the business. She believes that everybody should be given equal opportunity, but she also believes that performers should be able to perform whatever roles are out there and that sort of thing. So this whole issue, and everybody gets mad at me for that, and I'm totally fine for people being mad at me. I don't really care. As long as you're being mad at me for what my actual opinion is and not for some opinion somebody makes up and says that I said. That pisses me off. But, I mean, my opinion on this is simply this. We have to go back here to the rub and tug situation. And I believe that was a situation that was massively mishandled. Now, look, Scarlett Johansson's point that she just made in Deadline was that, you know, there are actors and performers in this business who are non-white, non-straight, whatever, people who do not get the same opportunities and are often turned away from casting processes simply because of who they are. That's beyond dispute. That's not in dispute here. I mean, that's widely acknowledged and recognized. And I agree with her on that. That her point that everybody needs to be given an equal opportunity. Equal opportunity doesn't mean you get equal results, but everybody needs to be given equal opportunity. So that's fine. And as far as political correctness goes, I gotta say this. A lot of times I find, and you may agree or disagree with me on this, and fine, and you know what, maybe I'll even change my mind about this in a couple of weeks. Maybe I'll even change my mind about this in a couple of weeks, to be honest with you. But when I hear people using the term political correctness, what I often find, not always, clearly not always, maybe not even the majority of the time, but there are times that I hear somebody use the word political correctness as a negative, in negative connotations. And what they, again, only some people, I'm not saying this is everybody, but I'm saying there are times when I see somebody use the term political correctness, and really, what's really happening is that they're using that made-up term as a shield. Because really, a lot of times what political correctness means is, hey, let's not act like assholes in how we treat other people. That's political correctness. Hey, let's not act like assholes in how we treat other people. But people don't want to say, I don't like being limited in how much of an asshole I get to treat other people. They don't want to say that, so they use the term political correctness as some kind of a shield. But really, what political correctness means in certain circumstances, again, I'm not making a big, broad blanket statement here, so don't pretend that I am. I'm not making a big, broad blanket statement. But there are many contexts when the term political correctness is just the term we use to say, hey, let's not act like assholes in how we treat other people who are different from us. That's what it is. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, this rub and tug situation never sat well with me. And to me, was always rather counterproductive. Because you get movies like, you want to increase the conversation and increase opportunities for people, then get the ball rolling and start to embrace change as it comes. And so what happens? We had Transamerica. We had the Dallas Buyers Club. We had The Danish Girl with Eddie Redmayne, which got him a Best Actor nomination. Got Alicia Vikander a Best Supporting Actress Oscar, as a matter of fact. Eddie Redmayne, that. You get movies and TV shows and projects like this, you start to change the industry by doing that. So along comes Scarlett Johansson. And we're kind of rehashing what happened before, but I think it's worth doing here for a moment. Along comes Scarlett Johansson, arguably the hottest actress in the world right now. Arguably. The most high-profile, hottest actress, definitely biggest box office actress in the world right now, who says, you know what? I'm going to produce a movie that continues to spread this movement of increasing awareness for this community that often gets downtrodden, for this community that we often put down or we don't fully understand. And I want to make this movie. I'm going to produce it. I'm going to star in it. I'm going to put the full weight of my celebrity, of my credibility. I'm going to put the full weight of it behind this film by not just producing it, but I'm going to star in it to make it as high profile as possible. That's going to have a transgender person as the lead in this high profile film. And I'm going to do all that and blah. And we'll continue to make these things so that having movies, follow me here, having movies with transgendered characters stops being considered such a odd thing or stops being considered such a weird thing. I'm not saying every other movie should have transgendered characters in it. That's not an accurate reflection of reality. I'm not saying that. However, there is a stigma attached to having transgender characters in television shows and movies that is starting to change, thankfully, but needs to continue to change. With Rub and Tug, we had an opportunity for somebody like a Scarlett Johansson to come and say, let's continue pushing this forward and let's make a high profile project. I'll produce it. I'll star in it. I'll pull the full weight of my credibility, my celebrity behind it, and we'll continue to change things. And the idea is they get changed enough that in the future, more and more roles become available to other groups of people that otherwise have never been given those opportunities before. That's the goal. But what happened? Instead of people celebrating that she was going to do this, instead of people celebrating that a star like Scarlett Johansson was going to put her weight behind furthering this agenda, behind furthering this notion of tearing down the limitations and tearing down the exclusions that's been put on entire groups of people, instead of being celebrated, they attacked her. People attacked her for it. And here's the real irony of this. Whereas a movie like Rub and Tug, with the biggest actress in the world behind it as a producer and an actor, could have paved the way further down the line for more movies to include roles for people who aren't just straight white people. Whereas a movie like this down the road could have increased the number of films that got made like this and increased the number of roles that got included in other movies and projects. Instead of doing that and fighting for a future where more opportunity would be available to people who aren't getting the opportunity now, instead we became effing short-sighted and just fought over this one role. Well, Scarlett, you shouldn't be in this. How dare you put yourself in this movie? How dare you? And we started fighting over one role instead of fighting for what this could have led to, a whole bunch of new roles to be included if a movie like Rub and Tug and other movies like it, got major studios, major stars, major personalities behind them to push them to make the inclusion of these types of roles in those movies more normal. Instead of looking at the big picture, people looked at this one role and became completely myopically focused on this one role that was just right in front of their nose. And they made this one role in this one movie their battleground. We're going to fight over this role. We think you shouldn't be in this, Scarlett. You should give this to somebody else. Instead of looking at the big picture and instead of looking down the road of what a movie like this could have led to, We made the battleground this thing that was right in front of our face. And we made the fight over with this one role and became totally short-sighted and lost view of the big picture. What's the results been? Scarlett Johansson backed out of the role. And we haven't heard anything about this movie since. Congratulations. Well done, everybody. Well done. Yeah, well done. We just set everything back 10 years. There was an opportunity for another high-profile film to have as its lead character, a transgender character led by the hottest star in Hollywood doing it, which could continue this trend that things like The Danish Girl and others has kind of set to make these types of characters in these movies more normal, that could have led to more opportunities down the road. But instead, we chose this to be the battleground. And now where's Rub and Tug? Where is it now? I don't know. Maybe they'll still make it. Maybe they will. But now it's going to be this quiet little list on Box Office Mojo, also opening this week in 15 theaters, Rub and Tug. And what difference is that going to make? How much of a difference is that going to make instead of a major movie releasing in 1,500 theaters across the country starring Scarlett Johansson? And what I think Scarlett Johansson's comments here were, she is completely in support of creating new opportunities for people who haven't been given the opportunities that she has, but at the same time, an actor's job is to act. And I really think, and again, I know there are a lot of people who completely disagree with me on this, and that's great. That's what dialogue's for. We're here to disagree with each other and have different thoughts. And like I said, I might even change my mind on this in 2 months. I might hear some good arguments from you guys that'll change my mind. I'm not drawing a line in the sand here at all, but that is how I feel about it right now. And I think that's what Scarlett Johansson is kind of stating here. I think she's lamenting to me the loss of an opportunity. When we see comments like this, to me, what I see is a movie star who is trying to do something good and no good deed goes unpunished. And she got brutally attacked for trying to do something good. And these, to me, are the comments of somebody who's lamenting a lost opportunity, not just for herself, but for an entire movement. And that's how I see it. I agree with her on that. I do. I think both are true. I think there is a place that we need to create more opportunities. I think there's been an agenda in Hollywood for decades and decades and decades to keep certain people out. And I believe those agendas have to come to an end. But at the same time, actors are actors, and you got to be allowed to let them act. And you got to take advantage of the opportunities when the cause of breaking down these decade-old agendas has to come first. And I just think it was a lost opportunity. So anyway, that's how I see. Now everybody's pissed off at me. Fine, I don't care. Everybody's pissed off at me, and that's fine. But that is my honest opinion on that. That is how I feel about that. Actors should be able to play people that they are not in real life. That's what acting is. Anyway, guys, you've heard me drone on and on about this. What do you guys think about this whole stuff with Scarlett Johansson, her comments, the backlash from it, all that kind of stuff? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know what you guys think. All right, with that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets sent to us from Randy Tallman, who writes, "Greetings, John. I think it's safe to say we all expected Spider-Man Far From Home to do well at the box office, but did you see that after just its second weekend, it's already almost at $850 million? Obviously, it's going to break the $1 billion mark, but by how much?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Randy. And yeah, we were talking about Spider-Man just a little bit ago, but the weekend box office numbers have come in, and it's all things Spider-Man. The weekend box office is all Spider-Man. Here's what the box office looks like. Spider-Man in its second weekend, only taking like a 51% official drop, makes $45.3 million. Coming in and again hitting $847 million worldwide in just at the end of its second official weekend. At just the end of its second official weekend, it's already at $847 million. Now, we'll look at that in context in just a second. Let's keep rounding out the top 5 here. Toy Story 4 made another $20.6 million. It continues to go up. Crawl, the new film Crawl, opened up in theaters, making $12 million. I'm telling you what, guys, if you have not seen Crawl, go see Crawl. Also opening in theaters this weekend is the new Kumail Nanjiani and Dave Bautista comedy, Stuber Not so good. I honestly, I can't recommend Stuber, unfortunately. I was excited about it, but didn't think it was all that good. It only makes $8 million in its opening weekend, and the film yesterday makes $6.7 million at the box office. So, a second dominant weekend in a row for Spider-Man Far From Home. But there's a bigger picture here. Yes, to hear that number, $847 million, it's crazy. That is a crazy number. But let's look at it in context of the history of the Spider-Man franchise. A lot of Spider-Man movies have made a lot of money over the years. And with this, look where it puts it. All time, the number one money-making Spider-Man movie ever is Spider-Man 3, which also is probably the worst Spider-Man movie ever made. But Spider-Man 3 made $890 million at the box office. Spider-Man Homecoming, the first one made in the partnership between Sony and Marvel, came just short of that, making $880 million. Look at this. At the end of just its second weekend, Spider-Man Far From Home is poised to pass both of them just at the end of its second weekend at $847 million. That's crazy. We're talking about a Spider-Man film that has now come up just short of the all-time biggest Spider-Man movie ever at just the end of its second weekend. Going back to the earlier conversation about was it worth it for Sony to spend $288 million on the marketing? I think this answers that question. I think undoubtedly this answers that question. Anyway, the number 4 all-time Spider-Man movie was the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man at $821 million. And then Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, I think the second best Spider-Man movie ever made, only behind Spider-Man Into the I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. I think Spider-Man 2 is the second best Spider-Man movie ever made. But anyway, that had $783 million at the box office. Again, appreciate the context of this. We're talking about a movie that's only $43 million away from the all-time number one Spider-Man movie in cinematic history, and it's only been 2 weekends. It's only done it over 2 weekends. That, my friends, is absolutely insane. And again, to tie it back into the previous issue, it speaks to the wisdom and how much the gamble paid off. Because Sony putting in $288 million to market this film, that's a gamble. That's a huge amount of money. But they were proved right. Because even at $288 million with a $160 million production budget, after just 2 weekends, Spider-Man Far From Home was already profitable. And everybody's swimming in, swimming pools filled with money and champagne. I mean, that's the result of it right now. And this movie is great. It was marketed great and all that sorts of good stuff. And now here we have it poised to kind of make history. And I said a long time ago that I did believe that Spider-Man Far From Home would join the $1 billion club. Not because of its marketing, but, going back a couple of months, I said, look, Homecoming was beloved and it made, over $800 million. Then everybody's just loved this Tom Holland Spider-Man. He had a showing for himself in Infinity War. He has a great moment or a couple of shots in Endgame. Everybody's been looking forward to it, blah, blah, blah. So I thought it would hit $1 billion. It seems now like this thing could be reaching for Black Panther kind of numbers. This thing could be shooting for like the $1.3 billion range. Now, I'm not guaranteeing it'll get to 1.3, but it looks like 1.3 is within the realm of possibility now. Whereas, hey, maybe it can get over $1 billion. Now we're talking about 1.3, maybe 1.4. That's incredible. That's incredible for this and just shows that this partnership between Sony and Marvel has been paying off in spades. And another reason why Sony's perfectly happy to keep Spider-Man in the MCU. Anyway, you guys see these numbers, the type of march that Spider-Man Far From Home is on, the way it's dominating the box office, almost $850 million after 2 weekends. What do you guys make of all this? What do you attribute it to, if not the marketing and the success of Homecoming? What else, other things should we be attributing this to? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know what you think. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to our final main topic today. And our final main topic today gets submitted to us from Clifton Williams, who writes, "Hey, John, much love from San Francisco. I've been seeing a lot of articles online about the 2017 Power Rangers film getting a quote-unquote reboot and not bringing back the cast from 2017. While it wasn't perfect, I did enjoy the cast, and what they did was something I loved since I was a child. How do you feel about this, and what are your thoughts? Thanks, and keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Clifton, for sending that in. And yeah, so if you guys haven't heard about this, there have been whispers for a while now that the 2017 Power Rangers movie was not going to get a sequel. This really shouldn't surprise anybody because we all just kind of assumed that. The 2017 film, despite so many people telling me and insisting to me that the Power Rangers movie was going to join the $1 billion club, the movie lost tons of money and was a total flop. But I will say this. I enjoyed that Power Rangers movie. I did. And look, full disclosure here. I said for a long time that I thought the Power Rangers movie, the one that was coming out in 2017, was a mistake. And I thought it's just going to be terrible. I said, this movie's going to be terrible. This is going to be terrible. That's what I said. Crouching. This movie's going to suck. That was me. I thought the movie was going to suck. But I left my expectations at the door. I went into the theater and watched it, judged it on its own merits. And I went, you know what? That was actually kind of fun. Color me shocked. I enjoyed the Power Rangers movie. Go figure. I enjoyed it. I never thought I would. I thought it was crappy. I thought I was going to come out of that theater hating that movie, but I left my expectations at the door, went in, watched it, and you know what? I had a good time. However, me having a good time doesn't change the fact that it was a box office flop, unfortunately. Now, so with flopping, a lot of people just assumed we probably wouldn't get a sequel, despite the fact that Saban said, we're going to make 7 Power Rangers movies. It's like, okay, buddy, whatever you say. Then Hasbro kind of took over it, and it kind of became clear that wasn't going to happen. But now we've gotten our most official word on the matter, and that's from one of the Power Ranger stars himself, Dacre Montgomery, who's, of course, in Stranger Things right now. You can see him as Billy in Stranger Things. And anyway, he was just recently asked about it on a Reddit AMA, and he puts the whole thing to bed when he said the following. I think there is a movie in the works, but it's not with me and the cast. So yes, but not with us. So it looks like on its surface that puts a nail in it. The Power Rangers movie of 2017, that iteration is now done. They're not doing a sequel for it. Now, I'll tell you what, I lament that a little bit. I do. I lament that a little bit because I thought this cast, including Dacre, Ludi Lin, and the rest of the cast as well, I thought they had a really good chemistry together. I thought they were fun to see on screen together, and I enjoyed it. So I would have been down to see another one, but at the same time, there's just no way from a business point of view that you could ever justify making another one, understanding what a flop that first one was. So this should come as no surprise. It is the only and really true first real confirmation that we're getting that it's official, that 2017 incarnation is now dead and they're going to move forward in a different direction. And what that new direction will look like or when something like that will come about, we have no idea at this point. But it does look like it's done, and it probably shouldn't surprise any of us. But maybe it does for you. What do you guys think about this? Are you guys legitimately surprised? Did you think, you know what, despite the financial results, we think if they made another one, it could have made more, they should have moved forward? Or do you think, like I do, that, yeah, the movie was charming, but with it losing so much money, you can't justify making another one? Let me know what you guys think about that. Jump down to the comments section below and leave me your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that down and out of the way, it's now time for us to go to our live questions. But before we get to those live questions, there's a lot of other things going on in the world of entertainment that we don't necessarily have time to get into here on the John Campea Show. But I want to make sure if you're watching the show, you do get caught up on this stuff. So right now, Fact Checker Jonathan is proud to present to you today's installment of the Movie News Feed. Check it out.
First up, looking for an unconventional romantic comedy? Extraordinary has you covered. From Slash Film, it's a low-budget indie set in Ireland, which tells the story of a lonely woman with supernatural abilities who finds a lonely man whose daughter is possessed, all while a fame-hungry Satanist played by Will Forte schemes his way through the background. Directors Micah Hearn and Enda Lauman have crafted a world in which hauntings are so frequent and commonplace, we don't even notice them. The movie follows a reluctant medium named Rose, played by Maeve Higgins, who meets a widower, played by Barry Ward, whose daughter is being targeted by the aforementioned Satanist. There's no release date slated yet. Next up, Arnold Schwarzenegger almost had a cameo in Shane Black's Predator. From Cinema Blend, Schwarzenegger turned down the part, and Black didn't bat an eye. The Predator co-writer Fred Decker explained what almost was in the movie, comparing the plan to Luke Skywalker's end scene cameo in Star Wars The Force Awakens. He said the following, "And the other thing I said is, we have to have Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie, because like it or not, one of the master strokes of The Force Awakens is that ending. Because even though Luke doesn't do anything except turn around and have a beard, it touches that little nostalgia button in you and you go, oh cool. And then you go to the credits and there's no way that movie's not going to be a big hit. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for the film." Next up, actress Stephanie Nisnik, best known for her roles as Nina Feeney on Everwood and as Kel Parham in Star Trek Insurrection, died June 23rd in Encinitas, California. She was 52. From Deadline, her additional credits include guest roles on Nash Bridges, NCIS and CIS Miami, and recurring roles on Grey's Anatomy and Diagnosis Murder. Her other film credits include Anywhere But Here, The Twilight of the Golds, Dear God, and Exit to Eden. Her most recent film appearance was in the feature The 20 in 2009. Next up, Steven Spielberg's production of West Side Story is underway, and now we have our first look at Anita, played by Ariana DeBose. From JoBlo.com, in addition to DeBose, the rest of the cast includes Ansel Elgort as Tony and Rachel Zegler as Maria. West Side Story Spielberg style dances its way into theaters on December 18, 2020. And finally, Saturday night's premiere of Hobbs & Shaw was brought to a halt following a brief electrical issue in the Dolby Theater. From Variety, reports from inside the venue say an electrical grid toward the front of the theater started sparking about 30 minutes into the screening, causing flashes and loud popping sounds to fill the room. Although security did not evacuate the theater, a number of panicked guests fled the venue, leading to widespread confusion. Before the movie resumed, Dwayne Johnson took time to address the audience, letting attendees know that he was waiting in the wings to make sure the crowd was safe. However, he added, Jason Statham ran his ass out of here. The delay lasted only around 15 minutes before the film began playing again. And that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed.
And now you guys are all caught up to date with everything going on. Special thanks again to fact checker Jonathan for putting that together for us. All right, guys, with all that down out of the way, let's now spend the rest of our day taking live questions. You guys have been firing in a whole bunch of live ones, so let's jump over to it right now and get things started. All right, the first one comes to us from Ryan Lohner, who writes, now just imagine if the new 007... Now just imagine if the new 007 was a mermaid. That's a great way to cross the controversies there, Ryan. I appreciate what you just did there. Maurice Seifring writes, have you seen the report that Jon Favreau will offer a sneak peek of The Mandalorian at the D23 Disney Plus panel? How excited are you? Thanks. Well, no, I haven't heard anything official, Marie. It might be out there, but I haven't heard any official word yet. But I think that just goes without saying. I think it goes without saying. Disney has really been putting a huge emphasis on their D23 conference. It's their own Comic-Con. And I've been assuming, I think a lot of us have been assuming that Jon Favreau would be showing us some D23, some Mandalorian at D23. Remember, it was at D23 that Jon Favreau came out and really gave us our first big look at his Jungle Book film. And said, you know, guys, this is going to blow. It's all computer generated, blah, blah, blah. And he did that. So I think it just stood to reason that they would probably have him come and do that. I'm also expecting a big presentation for Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. I'm expecting that. I think you're going to see them do a lot of stuff. And by the way, I think they're going to do some stuff for Marvel films in the MCU at D23 that they don't reveal at Comic-Con. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. Marie, I haven't heard the official word myself. But it does not surprise me at all because I'm expecting to see that. And yeah, you're damn right. I'm excited to see this. I'm very curious to see what we're going to get from The Mandalorian. All right. Next one comes to us from Nick Markins, who sends in a really big super chat. Thank you so much, Nick, for supporting the channel at that level. I appreciate that, man. That's very generous. Nick writes, hey, John, here's a big super chat. I just wanted to say keep up the good work and be careful of suspicious usernames on the super chat tricking you into saying inappropriate things. Yeah, that's happened a couple of times. That has happened. Well, first of all, just thank you for supporting the channel, Nick. But yeah, that has happened a couple times. And you know what? If somebody wants to pay money to be a troll, then by all means, pay money to be a troll. It softens the blow when somebody's willing to pay money to be a troll. It softens the blow a little bit. But yes, that happens. And it's often hard to catch because you're just reading syllables and moving on to the next question, right? But that does happen indeed. And I try. The nice thing is, though, the 99.9% of trolls are really cheap and they're not willing to spend any money just to drop a troll message. which is one of the wonderful things about Super Chats, actually. But anyway, Nick, seriously, thank you for just putting that in there to support the channel. Really appreciate it. It's always awesome to know that people will support content that they enjoy. So thank you so much for that, man. I'm very, very grateful. Uncharted Halo writes, one of two. Some people say that people only want comic books, novels, or video games to be adapted to film so they can be legitimized. I'm not sure that I agree with that. Uncharted follows that up with, I think people only say that because they don't like the idea of their favorite property being exposed to a wider group of people who may not appreciate their preferred medium. Thoughts? Well, it's an interesting situation because, number one, saying that people only want their favorite comic books, novels, or video games to be turned into movies so it can legitimize them, I don't think that's true. Do I think that sense of legitimacy is part of it? Yeah, I think that's part of it. Because if you're a fan of some little known thing and all of a sudden it's getting a movie made, that makes you feel a little bit more legitimized as a fan, right? It shouldn't, but that's how we feel sometimes. So I get that. That is part of it. But honestly, I think really the biggest thing is, look, if I grow up reading Batman and you're going to make a movie about Batman, the idea that I now get to see on the big screen Batman played out, that's amazing. People who love the Hunger Game books, to get to see it actually played out in movie form, that's pretty exciting if you're a fan of that stuff. Now, I do believe that legitimized aspect of it, that's a part of it, but I think that's a small part of it. I really do. I think it's the bigger thing of being able to take just from your imagination. Like, I remember when The Lord of the Rings was coming out. I wasn't excited for the Lord of the Rings movies because it legitimized my love of the books. Not at all. I was excited to see it because I wanted to see if the pictures in my head are going to look like the pictures on the big screen are going to be made to look like. That's what I was excited about. Now, as far as the second part of your thing there, that people don't want, their material being exposed to a wider group of people who may not appreciate the preferred medium, I don't know. I suppose there's a part of that. I think there's a part of that that's accurate and true. If you're a fan of like a little book and maybe you're a little bit nervous about like, hey, if the movie doesn't get it right, it'll make people think that this book isn't that good when I love this book. And I suppose that is a legitimate concern. I suppose that's a legitimate concern. But I also think a lot of the movie audience is sophisticated now enough to know that, hey, if a movie is based on a book and the movie didn't turn out very good, that doesn't necessarily mean the book isn't any good, right? And I think a lot of the audience is sophisticated enough to understand that. But at the same time, Uncharted, I see where that's coming from, though. That is a legitimate concern. Like, probably going into Lord of the Rings, there was probably a part of my brain as a fan going, oh God, please don't suck. Because if it sucks, then people are going to think that the Lord of the Rings sucks. And the Lord of the Rings is the greatest thing ever. Like that was probably a part of my thinking too. And that's probably part of the thinking of a lot of people who are fans of a certain bit of material that are seeing something coming out. That can be a concern. So I can appreciate that. Good thoughts, Uncharted. All right. Nick Markin sends in another ridiculously big super chat again. Nick, thank you, man. Hey, John. So Highlander 2 and Batman and Robin are considered to be amongst the worst movies ever made. They're up, especially Highlander 2. Out of these two, do you feel there are any positive aspects of these films? Did they do anything right, or are they both just absolute garbage? Well, I mean, here's the thing. Everybody knows that I say that the unholy trinity of the three absolute worst wide-released Hollywood films are Highlander, in no particular order, Highlander 2, Catwoman, and Battlefield Earth. I think that's the unholy trinity of the worst ever put out in wide release by Hollywood studios. Worst of the worst. So that being said, I think every movie has upside. I really do. No matter how bad the movie, there are redeeming qualities in every movie. Like, even though I really dislike the Star Wars prequels, I can sit here and talk very openly about elements of the prequels that I enjoy and that I think are good. The lightsaber fights, I think are great. The pod race scene, I think is fantastic. There are elements. I think the music is quite good. There are elements of every terrible movie has positive elements, and even the best movies have some negative elements. So yeah, Batman and Robin, you know what? There were a few funny moments in that film. There were a few moments that legitimately had me laughing. And, just seeing Arnold be ridiculously sappy, there's some enjoyment in that. And basically speaking, that yes, I do believe there's upside in that. Even Highlander 2. Seeing Sean Connery come back and all that kind of stuff. Like, there are moments. Michael Ironside appearing in it is a positive. But so there are moments and there are elements, I think, of every film, Nick. No matter how bad, there are absolutely things about it that are probably positives. Maybe they're outweighed 100 to 1, 100 negative things for every one positive thing, maybe, but there's always something good about just about any movie ever made. And there's always something negative or that could have been done better, no matter how good the film is at the same time. That's really one of my kind of foundational understandings of the movies, is I absolutely believe that. And yes, Nick, I totally do believe that even though it's one of the worst things ever made in Hollywood, I do believe there's a couple of positive elements in Highlander 2 and in Batman and Robin. Maybe some will disagree, and that's fine, but even in those films, I think there's some little tiny diamond specks in a big pile of horseshit. So that's kind of how I see it. All right. Adam Smith writes, when movies spend millions of dollars on marketing, where does all that money go? I can't imagine buying a bunch of print ads would be nearly as effective simply releasing a trailer online. Thoughts? No, see, that's a misnomer. Like, this is why there are people who specialize in marketing. They understand there are many ways to reach an audience where they are, and different mediums and types of marketing will affect people differently and get a different outcome. It's not about one thing or the other. Well, just put out a trailer. Just do that. No. You've got to look at it more holistically. Yes, we want people to see a trailer, but we want to remind them on their drive to work with a strategic billboard that, don't forget, this movie's coming out. When they order pizza, we want Spider-Man Far From Home to be in their face as much as possible. We want them never to forget that this movie's coming, put it on their brain, and when we do, hopefully that elicits a response out of them. So it's not about one thing or the other. And by the way, studies have shown still, I believe this will change someday, but still, the most effective marketing is still TV spots. It's still TV spots. They've done studies on this stuff. Like when you're watching a football game or one of your favorite shows, whatever, and then a Spider-Man Far From Home trailer pops up in there, there's an unconscious connection being made in your brain between your favorite show and Spider-Man Far From Home. That sounds ridiculous. I agree. It sounds ridiculous, but it's been proven to be true. And airtime is super expensive. Airtime is super expensive. Putting trailers online is free, but getting those trailers made, massive. And a lot of times putting trailers online mostly is only going to get people watching them who are already kind of interested in that film. That doesn't help you out all that much. I mean, it helps a little bit, but the person who isn't even thinking about Spider-Man Far From Home, they're not going to get on YouTube and search for Spider-Man Far From Home's trailer. So what do? You reach them where they're at. Put it on their pizza box. Put it on their soda can. Put it on their billboard on the drive to work. Put it on a page in a magazine that they read or in a newspaper that they read. Put it to where they are. And then maybe that will spark something and go, yeah, I've seen this Spider-Man stuff all over the place. There's a trailer. Let me check out a trailer. And they go and check out a trailer. And, so it's a holistic approach. It's not a one thing or the other, Adam. It's a really a wide-ranging thing. And these people have done these studies. They've spent hundreds of millions of dollars in studying on how the market reacts to certain types of marketing. This is why one of the biggest industries in the U.S. is the marketing agencies. Marketing agencies is a huge thing because they have the expertise and they know how to reach people. Believe me, if it was just as simple as, let's just cut a trailer and put it online. Let's save that $150 million. If it really was as simple as that and that actually worked, that's what all the studios would do. That's what they would do. But they know that's not how it works. And then it's beyond just the American audience. Now you're looking at a worldwide strategy. How are we going to market this thing in Greece? How are we going to market this thing in Germany? How are we going to market this thing in Poland? How are we going to market this thing in Zimbabwe? How are we going to market this thing in Canada? How are we going to look? So there's a huge thing with so many aspects and it becomes a monster thing. And that's why marketing agencies are so huge and so expensive. And look at the results. We got Spider-Man Far From Home is almost the biggest Spider-Man movie of all time. after just a second weekend? I think the results speak for it. Anyway, excellent question, Adam. Excellent question. All right. Mike Thompson writes, more frustrating, Iron Man Jr. or Jobber Superman? Jobber Superman. Look, the Iron Man Jr. thing, that just irritates me. It's just, I find it irritating. You know, Spider-Man's not cool enough on his own. Better give him an Iron Man costume. That's just irritating. The Jobber Superman bugs the hell out of me. So yes, easily Jobber Superman is the bigger frustration to me. James L.H. writes, hey John, unfortunately sending this from my hospital bed. Oh no, James. I'm 45 and suffered a surprise heart attack on Saturday, but remembering you talk in your show is inspiring me to keep positive. Yes, dude, do that because I was there. I suffered 2 heart attacks in a Muay Thai class. And the funny thing is I was done my class. It's one thing to think, okay, I'm in my class, I'm fighting, I'm doing whatever, and then no, I was done my class. I was sitting relaxing on a bench. I was relaxing on a bench, just waiting for my wife to finish her jiu-jitsu class. I was just sitting there, got hit with a heart attack. Didn't realize it was a heart attack, so I ignored it. A little while later, in the same day, I got hit with another heart attack. Didn't even realize it was a heart attack. Went to the hospital. Doctors didn't even think it was a heart attack at first until they ran their tests. Had 2 heart attacks, man. 2 heart attacks. Despite the fact that I don't have history of heart problems in my family, the fact that I exercise, I was in really good shape. I was in good shape. I wouldn't say really good shape. I was in good shape. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. All that kind of stuff. And I was young. But I had 2 heart attacks. Woke me up. And you know what? I am living testament, man, that sucky, horrible, scary thing can happen to you. You can bounce back. You can bounce back. Do everything your doctors tell you. As scary, as irritating, as much of a pain in the ass of a lot of it might feel, do everything your doctors tell you to. You'll be back on your feet, dude. You'll be back on your feet. Quick road recovery, James. Hang in there, brother. My thoughts are with you on that. All right. Mike Thompson writes, also, I'm sold on your pitch from Open Mic yesterday. I'm all in. I'm all in for Crab Superman. Okay. So where this came from is one of the super chatters yesterday, and I can't remember who it was, but, sent in a super chat, just basically, just well-natured, just sent a thing, I'm tired of hearing you complain about Iron Man Jr. Heaven forbid they should try something new. And what I said in response to that was like, okay, look, you're tired of hearing me complain about Iron Man Jr., that's fair, but don't bring up a false argument about heaven forbid they should try something new. Don't pretend that this is about me complaining or anybody else complaining about them doing something new. I'm all for them doing something new. Hell, look at what they're doing with Aunt May. That's completely new, completely different. They didn't give us the Uncle Ben thing. That's new and that's different. There's a lot of stuff they do that's new and different. I'm all for new. So this isn't about that. And then what I said was, if they came out and said, we're going to make a new Superman movie, but now Superman's a crab. And instead of being called Kal-El, we're going to call him Crab-El. He's going to be a crab. So like Superman was turned into a crab? No. We're just going to say that Superman, Kryptonians look like crabs. And he came to Earth as a crab. And now he's a crab. And he's got the Superman logo on his big snappers and all that kind of Superman. He's going to be a crab. Superman's going to be a crab. Now, if you complain about it, should we say to you, oh, come on, man, heaven forbid that they should try something new? No, because it's not about it being new. It's about it being dumb, right? It's not about a crab Superman being new. That's not the problem, it being new. It's just that it's dumb. And that's the problem you would have with it, right? And so that's where Crab Superman came from. So thanks for bringing that back up, Mike. Estevel Garcia writes, Endgame is only 7 million away to top Avatar. Will it happen? Again, it's going to be razor thin. It's either going to just barely fall short or it's going to just barely cross it. I still don't think it will, but it's going to be close either way. It very well could, but it's going to be razor thin either way. But again, it's inconsequential. It doesn't matter because even if Endgame passes it, Disney is just going to re-release Avatar. Even if it's just limited, they're going to re-release Avatar, so Avatar will be the #1 film of all time again. So that will help them in their marketing for Avatar 2. So they can say, the sequel to the #1 box office film of all time. That's what Disney's going to do. They're just going to re-release it so it's the #1 thing again. It's all Disney, so it doesn't matter. Disney's making the money either way. But I still suspect it's not going to cross Avatar. I think it's going to come just razor short, but it could. And if it does pass, it'll be by a razor amount, but it's all irrelevant because Disney's just going to re-release Avatar at some point anyway, so they can use that as their marketing for Avatar 2. That's just my thought at any rate. All right. Superman Steve writes, I just wanted to say your show really is the best on YouTube. Oh, thanks so much, man. In my personal opinion, please never stop being incredible. Well, I'll tell you what, how about I start trying to start being incredible? I'll try that. Oh, no, seriously, Superman. It's always nice when somebody wants to send in a thought or whatever just to say something nice. And I appreciate that very much. And believe me, the honor is mine doing this stuff. I love getting together with the film fans every day, just talking about our favorite stuff, movies. So thank you for that, Superman Steve. Superman Steve follows up with, P.S. I know I'm going to cry in the opening scene of The Lion King. I'm watching it Wednesday morning, your Tuesday. I'm telling you what, man, I sobbed like a frickin' baby. That opening scene, I wasn't prepared for it. Like, I knew that the opening scene was going to be a shot-for-shot, because they said this in advance. The opening sequence, it was a shot-for-shot remake of the opening sequence of the animated one. As the sunrise comes up and blow. And so I knew that this was coming, but I was not prepared for how much it was going to impact me. And I'm watching it, and I suddenly realize my eyes are watering. And I'm suddenly realizing my nose is getting a little stuffy. And before I know it, Anne's looking over at me, and I'm like, like I was just an emotional mess. And then I went to see it again the next day, and I took Erin Cummings, who's a guest on our show. She'll be here tomorrow. I took Erin Cummings to go see the press screening of it. And sure enough, I didn't say anything, but when the movie started, I started looking over at her, and within 20 seconds, she was like, just an emotional mess. An emotional mess. The critics are not giving this movie love. They are not giving this movie love. And that's why I keep saying that this movie is now my new Man of Steel. Man of Steel and Lion King are my two movies that I love beyond measure, and the critics just will not give it love. So those are my two poster children now. It's Lion King and Man of Steel. And that, hey, you know, and it's all subjective. I don't blame critics who don't like it. If they don't like it, they don't like it. That's the subjectivity of film. I'm not going to complain about it. But those are my new two poster children for these types of movies. Anyway, that was me. Superman Steve follows up again, right? In Australia, we are a day in front of you. I know, and I remember my buddy, he runs this lighting company. Anyway, he would often travel to Australia, married an Australian girl. Anyway, and it would always throw me off because when he would be over there, I had to try to figure out the timing of when, like if I contact him now, is he even awake? And when would he be getting back to me? So yeah, I became actually, even though I've never visited Australia and I'd love to, I kind of became well-versed in the time difference there, Superman Steve. Again, thank you, my friend. All right. Walk in Pneumonia writes, just saying thanks. Oh, thank you, Walk in Pneumonia. That's a great username. Walk in Pneumonia. Thanks for that, man. I appreciate that. MZod78 writes, John, have you heard how people are saying that since Disney owns the Oscars, what? Disney does not own the Oscars. LOL, since when? Joker will never get any nomination in any major category. Well, okay, that's dumb. Because, look, if the Disney owned the Oscars, Black Panther would have won Best Picture at the Academy Awards last year. And would have been nominated in some more categories other than just the one major category. It wasn't nominated in any other major categories. I think it had one or two other smaller ones, but whatever. Look, that's just stupid. The Academy, not Disney, not ABC. ABC has no say in how the Academy members vote. The Academy members do the voting. I mean, hell, the Academy gave Suicide Squad an Academy Award. Frankly, for a category they did deserve it in. They gave Suicide Squad an Academy Award. Look, if Joker doesn't get nominated, it'll be because it didn't deserve to get nominated. Look, let's also just remind these people, MZod, how asinine it is to have an argument over about whether a movie's going to get snubbed for Oscar nominations when we haven't even seen the effing movie yet. We haven't even seen the damn movie yet. So how asinine is it to have a debate over whether or not, if it doesn't get nominations, it's because it got snubbed because Disney owns the Academy Awards? It's a ridiculous. We haven't even seen the movie yet. I haven't even seen it yet. Logan was done by Fox. It got nominated for one of the major awards. It got nominated for Best Screenplay, one of the major awards. Guess what? No Marvel film has ever been nominated for Best Screenplay. And it ain't going to start this year either, because no Marvel film deserves to be nominated for Best Screenplay this year. But at any rate, so no, it's an asinine topic. We haven't even seen the movie. If it doesn't get nominated, it's going to be because it doesn't deserve it. If it deserves it, it'll get nominated. So, we'll just have to wait and see. Willow Yang writes, is Rub and Tug, the movie that Scarlett Johansson bowed out due to backlash, still happening? I think officially it's still on the burner, but nothing's happened with it. That's been part of the thing, cutting off our nose to spite our face, not being able to see the forest through the trees. Instead of looking long-term at the big benefits of what a movie like this with Scarlett Johansson starring in it could have given us, instead we looked at what's right here. No, let's fight over this one role in this one movie. Let's make our battlefield this one role in this one movie, instead of looking bigger picture for how this could help continue the change of attitude in the industry as a whole, which maybe could have helped lead to more roles like that existing and more opportunities popping up. Instead, they couldn't get out of our own way and went, no, let's fight about this. Let's fight about this. And again, I'm saying that like this, but even I'm admitting maybe in 2 weeks I have a different opinion. Maybe in 2 weeks I have a different opinion. I come from it from a certain perspective because I am who I am. And maybe somebody from a different perspective will look at it differently, and I respect that. But again, just from my perspective, as limited as my perspective may be, and my perspective is a limited one, I acknowledge that. I fully admit that. Don't accuse me of having a limited perspective. I'm admitting I have a limited perspective. I understand that, but it is nonetheless the perspective I see. And to me, it really felt like people were willing to sacrifice long-term gains in the hopes of drawing a line in the sand, having a battle over something so short-sighted. Again, that's how I see it right now. Maybe my mind could be changed, and maybe different people with different perspectives will see it differently, but that's how I felt about it. Anyway, Jonathan Teft writes, do you find it weird that after the original Lion King was such a big hit that Disney never did another animated movie with only non-anthropomorphized talking animals and no humans? Not really, because Disney understood that not everything is about breaking down the formula. The reason Lion King worked is not because of the formula of, as you so accurately put it, animated movie with only non-anthropomorphized talking animals. Disney knew and understood that's not why the movie worked. The movie worked because it was a great story with great characters, and it was emotional and had wonderful music and just appealed to everybody with where they were. It wasn't because it was talking animals without humans. That's not, because that would kind of be the same. I would suggest, Jonathan, that would kind of be the same as saying, in Lion King, there's a lot of yellow. The color yellow is used a lot in Lion King. I think we better start putting some more yellow in our films, buds. We should probably start putting yellow in more. No, because they knew the color yellow is not what made the movie successful. What made it successful and classic was well-written story with well-written characters that told a story that spoke to people and to an audience and made an impact. And what did they do? They made more films like that. They knew what was the key to the success, and they knew what wasn't the key. And they knew that the key was not all talking animals without talking humans. You can still do more of those if you want, but that's not what's going to make it successful. What made it successful was what it was as a story. And I think they knew that. So no, I honestly never gave that any thought. I mean, it's an interesting point of view to suggest, but yeah, I never thought of it like that at all, because to me, they knew that's not what made it work. Okay, Kyle B writes, God forbid Scarlett has a slightly different opinion than radical left Hollywood. It's safe to say there is heartless trolls on both sides because social media was brutal towards her. Social media was brutal towards her. Social media was brutal towards her. There's no doubt about it. And I thought it was completely misdirected and misguided, because ultimately at the end of the day, she is on their side. She believes in more equality for people. She believes in more opportunities for people. And she thought that she was doing her part to help change the industry, to give people more opportunities down the road if she put the full weight of her celebrity and credibility behind this movie. And instead, she got attacked. No good deed goes unpunished. And again, I think it's just a matter of short-sightedness versus long-term thing. And by the way, this isn't about radical left or anything like that. These are just people with their own perspectives looking at something and voicing their opinions. I believe they were being short-sighted about it. But hey, man, is what it is. All right, Cameron Ross writes, hey, everyone, if the MCU were to happen in the 80s or 90s, who would you cast to play the original six? Brother, come on, Cameron. You've watched me long enough. Come on, you watched me long enough to know that I don't do what X actor should we put in X role. I mean, I don't do that. And I've explained many, many times why I don't. I mean, it is fascinating to sit down and fantasize, hey, if they had done this back then, who would have been the stars that might have been up for that? But honestly, the questions of X actors and X roles is not something I like to get into. And you know that, my friend. You know that. All right. Anyway, Kevin Lewis writes, should a YouTuber/podcaster be careful not to bring up his politics on a movie/sports show? No. I think that's all up to somebody's personal outlook on it. Look. I do my YouTube channel in a certain way. I don't get into politics on my thing. Now, remember, I believe that equality is not a political issue. That's a human decency issue. I don't believe that equality is a political issue. I do not see it as a political issue. I have lots of friends who lean politically to the right that believe heavily in equality. I know lots of my friends who lean politically left that believe in equality. Equality is not a political issue. It's a human decency issue. So I'll talk about that. But as far as everything else that widely encompasses politics, I don't get into it. Because that's not what I want my channel to be. I want my channel to be about the things I love, which is movies. And some TV and things like that too, but that's what I want my channel to be. That doesn't mean everybody else has to share my same opinion, my same approach to that. There are several extremely politically charged websites out there and YouTube channels. A couple of them very politically charged to the left, a couple of them very politically charged to the right, that disguise their moviedom. They use movie stuff as a platform and as a pretext to really just talk about their own political leanings, their own political agendas. That's not how I want to do things. But that doesn't mean it. Look, if somebody's individual political beliefs are really important to them and that's their truth and they want to use their platform to address that, it's not what I don't agree with that, but it is up to them. It's what works for them, you know? Like there are a couple of websites and a couple of YouTube channels I can think off the top of my head that are brutally awful at that. But even though I think they're terrible at that, and that's all they do, they just use their whatever to spread their own political agenda and propaganda. That's their prerogative, you know. And I'll actually sit here and say, no, they shouldn't be silenced. They shouldn't not be allowed to do that. They shouldn't make note to avoid that. It's what is important to them. And if that's what's important to them, then honestly, whether I agree with it or not, they should speak about it. Now, when I do my little sessions and I talk to people about how to get started in YouTubing, I will personally encourage that people leave their politics out of it, that, you know, focus on the things you love, be known either as a blogger, a podcaster, YouTuber, or whatever, be known for what you love. Don't become known for what you hate. And all that kind of stuff. That's how I'll encourage it. But just because I encourage that doesn't mean I think that anybody else that wants to approach it differently shouldn't approach it differently. If that's what's important to them, speak to it. I'll encourage people to not do that because I don't think that's constructive or healthy for anybody. But just because I think that doesn't mean I'm right. I could be wrong about that. And so when it comes to you being a podcaster, a blogger, or a YouTuber, ultimately, you're only effective as long as you're being authentic to who you are. And if those are the things that are important to you and that really get your fires going, then whether it's something I agree with or disagree with, that's what you should do. You go ahead and do that. And it is what it is. So I personally try to avoid all that stuff except for equality, because again, equality is not a political issue. Equality is a human decency issue. But other than that, I stay out of politics when it comes to my shows. That's what I do, but I'm not going to say that that's what everybody should do. Just because I do it doesn't mean that's what everybody else should do. So anyway, that's just how I see it. And it's an evolving thought process. Who knows? Kevin Lewis writes, what music for Wonder Woman 84, new wave or hair metal? Ooh. You know what? I'm going to take a wild guess at this. Considering that main theme, that Hans Zimmer, how perfect was that? Wasn't that perfect? Did I not just do a perfect rendition of the Wonder Woman theme? Anyway, when I think about that, that lends me more towards hair metal. I will take a guess, Kevin, at hair metal. I think it's going to be hair metal. All right. Juan Mia writes, hello, John. Have you seen Batman and Bill documentary? It's only available on Hulu. Highly recommend. Yes, I did finally get around to watching that, and it was great. Robert has talked about it as well. If you get a chance to watch that, you totally should. Follow Juan's recommendation. I think I'm actually, how can I say I didn't think it was on Hulu? Because that's probably where I saw. Anyway, follow Juan's recommendation. Go check it out. Rob got me turned on to it. It's really, really quite good. All right. Isaac S. writes, listen to your show during a car ride, and you were talking about Titanic and Avatar. Meanwhile, I saw an exit sign that said Cameron. Found it funny. Dude, I get freaked. I'll be honest, I'm not a superstitious guy. I'm honestly not. I'm not a superstitious guy. But I do get a little bit freaked out when little coincidental things like that happen. Like, something got brought up to me earlier that day, and then later that day, somebody else brought up the exact same thing, and it's not something that's popular in the news right now. It's something that hasn't been mentioned in 10 years, blah, blah, blah. Like, or I'm hearing somebody talk about something on the radio, like I'm listening to Tech Guy, right? I'm big into tech podcasts. So I'm listening to Tech Guy, and all of a sudden I drive by a thing, like he'll be talking about this new computer system coming out, and all of a sudden I'm driving by on Wilshire Boulevard, and there's this big ad on the window of a building for that same computer system right at the same time. That freaks me out a little bit. So that's kind of interesting, Isaac. All right, Jack Leo writes, do you think they should have waited a little longer to drop the first Kingsman trailer since the movie doesn't come out for another 7 months? Yes. However, I will also say this. It was just a little teaser. I personally think maximum you should start marketing a film is within 6 months. Maximum. That's the longest out you should do it. I think is 6 months. 7, it's not really much outside that. And it's not like it was the full-fledged balls to the wall, like our foot to the metal trailer for I keep wanting to say Kingsman, the Kingsman. It was a teaser. It gave us a little sense of the tone, a little sense of the grittiness. So look, yeah, if I was the executive there, would I have said, let's hold off on this for another month or two? Yes, I would have said hold off on it until after Comic-Con. Or hell, drop it during Comic-Con. A lot of trailers get a lot of attention when Comic-Con's going on. But I probably would say hold off another month or two to do it, but they did it, so, and it's close enough, and it was just a teaser. So I'm going to say I'm okay with it, Jack. I'm going to say I'm okay with it, but just in general, yeah, I think marketing and studios need to shorten their windows for their marketing, because I think we're seeing it having some detrimental effects, but this one I don't think is going to have a detrimental effect. I might be wrong, but that's how I see it right now. All right. QS Hicks writes, Avatar 25, first movie to crack $1 trillion at the box office. It's so weird to me that James Cameron does not have 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Avatar sequels on his plate right now. It's hard for me to imagine Avatar 2, let alone 4, but yep, Avatar 25, the first to crack $1 trillion. Ryan Trabuco writes, welcome to San Diego later this week. I'm coming out on Wednesday. Me and Rob are going to do the John Campea Show on Wednesday. And then as soon as we're done, Ann and I are going to have the car already packed. Ann's going to be downstairs waiting for me. I'm going to run out the door, jump the car, boom, out to San Diego we go. I'm very excited about it. Welcome to San Diego later this week. If you have time to sneak in a movie, AMC Mission Valley has a Dolby Cinema and an IMAX. Excited for Comic-Con. I've been to that movie theater. And I went because a lot of times studios will do little industry screenings of something there, and I've gone to a couple of them that were actually done at the San Diego Mission Valley. I believe that's where I went to go see, where I went to go see Paul Bettany's Priest. I think I saw that there. But anyway, I really liked the theater. I thought it was a really nice theater. But, you know, here's the thing. Unless it's a special screening for something they're promoting at Comic-Con, I'm not going to be going to any movies while I'm there. I have an AMC I have 3 big AMC theaters, 10-minute walk up the street from me. So I can go to a movie anytime. But I can only go to San Diego like for Comic-Con once a year. So I'm not probably going to be spending my time going to do things that I could just do at home anytime. You know what I mean? So I probably won't unless, you know, Paramount puts the word, which they do sometimes, put a, hey, industry guys, we're going to do a special screening of this at this theater at this time. Well, then I'll go do that. But like, just go see, like, I'm not going to go watch, I don't know. I'm not going to go watch Crawl again while I'm in San Diego, you know? I can do that when I come home, but I can't do all the other things in San Diego. So there's that. Ryan also follows up with, also, there's a new luxury movie theater in the Gaslamp called Theater Box. Hope you all have a great time here in San Diego. Is that in the place where the old movie theater was? Because they had a movie theater. Actually, my first documentary film that I ever made, which was called Prince of Peace, God of War. A lot of people don't realize, I did a documentary once. And the very first place it premiered was at the San Diego Film Festival in that theater in the Gaslamp. And then I saw last year that they had closed that theater down. So is this new luxury movie theater box? I'm going to assume it's in that building because it was built to be a movie theater. That's interesting if that's the case. I'll have to go there because, like I said, I debuted my first movie ever at the San Diego Film Festival in that building. So I hope it's in the same building. It seems to make sense that it would be. All right. Zaya writes, Us has been released on DVD and digital HD for almost a month. Are we good on talking spoilers? Because I'd like to know your opinion on the ending. I thought the ending was stupid. Without going into spoilers, I thought the ending was bad. And I thought it caused a lot of discrepancies for the rest of the film, and it just made no sense. It made no sense. I like Us. I think Us overall is a good movie. It's just nowhere near as good as his first movie, Get Out. And a lot of logic problems. Like, I remember me and my buddy Soul from the Fine Brothers, we each went to go see Us on the same night at 2 different AMC theaters that are only 5 minutes apart from each other. And we realized this as we're on our phones, and we said, hey, let's just meet up at the Yard House and grab something to eat after the movies, and let's talk about the movie. And we got together at this Yard House, and all we did was talk for an hour about, here's all the logic problems with this movie, and that's all we could. I mean, we both enjoyed it. Lupita Nyong'o is insanely good in for it. She's probably going to get an Academy Award nomination for it. She's insane in it. But, yeah, I was... a lot of logic problems from that thing. So I would say give it another month. Give it another month so that people who are interested in seeing it that haven't seen it yet will have plenty of time to watch it on home video if they want. And then you can probably, after that, ask a spoilers question if you like. But give it at least another month. Because that's my general feeling on spoiler questions. Once a film has completed its full theatrical run and then has been out on home video for at least a couple of months, if you haven't seen the movie by then you're clearly not all that interested in it. If it did its full theatrical run and you never saw it, and it's been out on home video, available for you to just click on a button on your remote and watch anytime you want, and you've had a couple of months to do that and you still haven't done it, I would make an argument that you're not all that concerned about that movie. And you getting exposed to a spoiler isn't that big of a deal at that point. So I would say give it another month. All right, QS Hicks writes, Homecoming 3 end credit scene. Homecoming 3 end credits scene. MJ says her mom's maiden name is Mary Jane Watson. Peter meets her and it's Kirsten Dunst. No, I again, everybody keeps trying to throw up these ideas of them crossing over the original films, despite the fact of a certain cameo in the movie. I don't think they're going to do that. And I certainly don't think we're ever going to see Kirsten Dunst in there. All right. Joe Leon writes, Hola, John. Over under 50%, Marvel is using the Eternals as a misdirect, just like Serpent Society. I love Eternals, but I can't help feeling this is a cover. I don't think so. I'm going to take the under 15%. And by the way, Serpent Society wasn't a completely different movie. It was Captain America Serpent Society, which they then later revealed to actually be Captain America Civil War. It was still a Captain America movie, right? So this is a different situation. This would be suggesting and hinting at one movie when it's really an entirely different movie. That's not what they did with Serpent Society to Civil War, because they were both Captain America movies. So no, I don't think so. It would be interesting if we get to Comic-Con and Kevin Feige says, you've probably heard some whispers about the Eternals. Well, actually, it's this, and it's something else. That would be hilarious. But I'm going to take under 15%. I think it actually is an Eternals movie, so we'll see. Joe also follows up, writes, last week I meant to ask if Rob or Chris knew about Tashiki Mike's Zebra Man. I think you might be interested, John. It's like a Japanese super. Oh, that's interesting. And look, I've seen a number of Tashiki Mike's films, but I've never heard of Zebra Man. Straight up, I've never even heard of that one. And I think I remember you bringing that up, and I'm like, I haven't even heard of that one. And unfortunately, Rob and Chris aren't here. But describing it like a Japanese super, okay, that's intriguing. That's intriguing. I'll bring that up with Rob. I'll see if he's seen it and if he would recommend it as well, because that actually does sound kind of interesting, Joe. All right. Vince Carter of Mars writes, watch Gotti because it was free on Amazon Prime. It's actually really good if interpreted the right way. LOL, just kidding. That movie's hot garbage. I will look. Normally people try to get me and they don't get me. You got me there. You had me going for. I thought you were being serious for a minute. Okay, the Movie Pass. Movie Pass produced Gotti, if I'm not mistaken. I think that wasn't that the movie that Movie Pass produced? And they kept trying to spin it as if it was some like Academy-worthy film. Anyway, I might be thinking of something different, but I think that was the one. All right, James Wheeler writes, good morning, everyone. Have any of you ever seen the 1960 Soviet War and Peace? Just bought the new Criterion version. No, I never have. The Soviet War and Peace? I'm not even quite sure what that is. No, I am not familiar with it, but if it's on the Criterion Collection, I'll bet you anything Robert Meyer Burnett has it. I'll bet you anything he has it. So if he were here, I'm sure he would have something to say about that, but off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with it. Kevin Lewis writes, tapped out halfway through Highwayman, slow and know how it ends. I've heard a number of people say that. Although I was really intrigued to watch it, I never did get around to watching it. But I've heard a number of people, Kevin, say the exact same thing, which is unfortunate because I thought it looked pretty good. The CTB channel writes, as far as I'm concerned, Spider-Man Far From Home is the best rom-com of all time. I wouldn't consider, number one, I don't think Far From Home is the best anything of all time. It's very good. I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think it's a romantic comedy. Are there romantic comedy elements in the movie? Yes, there are. But the romantic comedy elements of Spider-Man Far From Home, in my opinion, is far too small of a part of the movie to consider the movie overall a romantic comedy. Like, there are movies out there that people think one way, and you could say, actually, that movie's kind of a romantic comedy. And when you think about it, you go, yeah, you know what it is. But Spider-Man Far From Home, even I've only seen it twice. But as I'm sitting here and thinking about it, really, the romantic comedy elements in the film are so few and so far between that I just don't see there being any way to describe it as a romantic comedy. Like, I'm trying to think, like, A Star Is Born. There are some laughs in A Star Is Born. And there's romance in A Star Is Born. There are elements of a romantic comedy in A Star Is Born, but is A Star Is Born a romantic comedy? No. No. So I'm going to disagree with you there, brother. I'm going to disagree with you on that. I don't even consider a romantic comedy at all. And even if it was a romantic comedy, it wouldn't be in the top 10 for me. But hey, man, if that's how you watched it and it hit you that way and it really made an impression upon you as a romantic comedy and you enjoyed it on that level, more power to you, brother. More power to you. I don't agree personally, but hey, that's great if that's how you saw it. All right, David Stickles writes, check out Le Chance du Loup, Wolf's Call on Netflix. Another movie Netflix didn't market. Yeah, I've never even heard of it. Par for the course for Netflix. They put out a movie on their system. I've never even heard of it. French nuclear sub-thriller similar to Red October. Solid film. Okay. As soon as you said nuclear sub-thriller, you've got my attention. Das Boot, Hunt for Red October, you got my attention. All right, I might keep my eye open for it. I don't generally run out and watch things on Netflix, original movies to Netflix. I don't generally run out and watch them, but there are some exceptions. I might make that one an exception because that sounds kind of intriguing. Thanks for putting that on our radar, David. All right, Flyswatter 0182 writes, or Fly Swatter 0182 writes, Harrison Ford and my birthday is July 13th. Since I was a youngling, I've watched at least one indie on my birthday. Awesome to think at 31, I've been doing this for over 24 years. It is crazy because how old is, hey, what, let's ask the all-knowing Google. Hey, Google, how old is Harrison Ford? See how old he is
Harrison
now.
Ford is 77 years old.
I still can't believe Harrison Ford is 77 years old. 77 years old. That is crazy. And apparently they're claiming they're still making another Indiana Jones movie. Which, okay, go for it. But Harrison Ford's one of the greats, and that's awesome that you get to share your birthday with Harrison Ford, man. That's awesome. It sounds like you got a nice tradition going there, too. All right, Chris Parsons writes, Mortal Kombat reboot will have fatalities. Yes. Well, I mean, even comedies have a lot of fatalities. Hell, Stuber has fatalities. You're talking about the unique to Mortal Kombat fatality. So, yeah. Maybe. I mean, James Wan, it sounds like he's going balls to the wall. We'll see how this... Look, the one thing I'm still very nervous about Mortal Kombat, number one is that it's Mortal Kombat. But number two is the fact that it's got a first-time director and a first-time screenwriter. That makes me nervous. And you can have James Wan as the producer all you want, but the fact of the matter is James Wan's not going to be in the director's chair day in, day out actually putting this movie together. It's going to be this first-time director working off a script of a guy who's having his first screenplay being made into a movie. That makes me a little nervous. I'm not saying that automatically means the movie will be bad. I'm just saying it makes me a little nervous. But, you know, when the movie comes out, like Power Rangers, I'm going to leave my expectations at the door and just judge the movie on its own merits. Suthius writes, Hey guys, I love the Kingsman trailer. I don't know who that kid is in the title role, though. I thought they'd get someone a little recognizable. Well, they got Ralph Fiennes in there, and I'm totally fine with it not being somebody recognizable. After all, Nobody knew who the hell Taron Egerton was before Kingsman, right? He may have been in a couple of little things, but nobody knew who Taron Egerton was. And he's Eggsy now, so that worked perfectly good. You know, you had an Academy Award winner, and then you had Taron Egerton. Now you've got one of the greatest actors on the planet in Ralph Fiennes with this new kid. And you're right, I don't know who this new kid is. I haven't looked him up yet. I don't know who he is either, but we didn't know who Taron Egerton was either. So I gotta say, I'm intrigued by this trailer, Suthius. I am intrigued by this trailer. Let's see how it evolves. All right, Jason Alexander writes, Hey, John, my buddy Nick Gurr's birthday is today, and he's a huge fan of the show. Well, that's always nice to hear. Can you give him a shout out? Well, I think we just did, Jason. So, Nick, Jason wants to say happy birthday, and a beautiful happy birthday to you. I hope you have a great year ahead of you filled with tons of success, love, hope, cherishing dreams. Have a good one, man. And you can thank your friend Jason for that. So happy birthday, Nick. All right, thanks for that, Jason. All right. Evelyn writes, Emmy noms drop tomorrow. Anyone you hope to see? Honestly, I don't really care much about the Emmys. It's not because I don't respect the Emmys. I do. But I'm just not... I am a movie guy way more than I'm a TV guy. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't watch the Emmys either. When the Emmy winners get announced, I'm very intrigued to look up to see who won. But generally speaking, I got to admit, I don't really follow the Emmys. I don't follow the Emmy race. I don't even watch the show. I usually just the next day I'll check out to see who won, and then I'll be interested about that. But I don't really pay much attention to it, to be honest, Evelyn. Suthius writes, How did Mace die? He was thrown out... How did Mace die? He was thrown out the window. Shame on you, Suthius. Shame on you. All right, Mr. Hero 17 writes, If Doctor Strange was more seasoned and fully experienced in Infinity War / Endgame, he could have ended Thanos with a whisper. Thought? No. Remember, the comic books and the movies are two different things. They are two different things. They are not setting up Doctor Strange to be the most powerful being in all of the cosmos. The MCU is not doing that. And Thanos, particularly in possession of an Infinity Gauntlet, became a threat level that neither Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, anybody can deal with one-on-one. And again, remember, this is not the comic books. These are the movies. And in the movies, they're not setting up Doctor Strange to be that powerful. They clearly show him to be extremely powerful, but not that powerful. So no, I don't think so. Suthius writes, Quiet Place 2 just begun filming. Tangibilization. Yep. Well, I mean, I think, I will often use the word tangibilization to a movie that it's hard to imagine they're actually doing this, and then they actually start shooting. Quiet Place 2, being such a low-budget film that came out of nowhere and such a smash success, I thought it was the best movie of 2018, personally. We've had no doubt that they were doing this. No doubt about it. So I wouldn't say tangibilization, but I am excited to hear that they've started shooting. Eric Saul writes, revisited the leaked on-set footage of Joker and noticed he flips off the 2 Gotham Police Department officers and that they are also yelling Arthur while chasing him. I don't know that that means anything, or let's put it this way, Eric. I don't know that suggests anything that we didn't already kind of suspect, but it's always interesting when you can go back and watch an old trailer, an old piece of footage, whether it's leaked or otherwise, and see and notice little things that you didn't notice before. I always get a big kick out of that. Epic Berserker writes, and I cannot wait for the Joker movie. I'm super excited for it. Epic Berserker writes, good morning, John. Because JJ's back for Star Wars Episode 9, over under 57%. Star Wars Episode 9 box office matches or succeeds The Force Awakens box office. I'm going to take under 57%. Because remember, part of The Force Awakens, and I love The Force Awakens. I think it's great. I love that movie. Like, me and Schnepp would go watch it. Like, I lost count of how many times we went to go see it. But it was just for both of us one of those movies that every time we watched it, it got better and better and better. And I really love it. It's not as good as any of the original trilogy, but I loved it nonetheless. But part of the reason for the big success, the $2 billion success of that movie, is the fact that there was this huge novelty that Star Wars was back. And it had been so many years since, not only had it been so many years since there was a Star Wars movie in theaters, but we had thought for a long time there would never be another Star Wars movie again. And so part of that $2 billion success, I believe, is that. Well, that's no longer part of it. The novelty of it being back is gone. Star Wars Episode 9 is going to be a big, massive hit. It's going to be north of $1 billion film. It's going to be big and massive, but I'm going to take under 57% that it will make $2.1 billion or join the $2 billion club. I don't think it will. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm dead wrong. I mean, and who knows? Maybe this is the greatest movie ever made. Who knows? Whatever. But sitting from where we are right now with the information we have right now, I'm going to take well under 57%. DMV fan 123 writes, Endgame is only 7 million away from Avatar. Yeah, but I mean, the funny thing is, everybody swore up and down, like when Endgame opened, everybody swore up and down, but that Avatar would have been beaten out ages ago. And yet here we are, and it still hasn't crossed it. It's going to be razor thin either way. It'll either beat it razor thin or it'll fall short razor thin. But again, it's all inconsequential because then Disney's just going to re-release the first Avatar to make it the #1 film of all time again. Epic Berserker writes, which out of these two will be the bigger surprise? The sleeper hit Aladdin due to the trailers or Lion King scores? Lion King scores. Particularly after I saw The Lion King. Like, if 3 weeks ago, if I was able to look into the future 3 weeks ago to see that Lion King was at 59% on Rotten Tomatoes, 59, 60%, whatever, I would have been surprised. But I would have been more surprised at how good and how big of a hit Aladdin is. But since I have seen Lion King, and I think it's effing amazing, I think it's fantastic. Like, Disney has stumbled a lot lately. Like, they put out Wrinkle in Time was bad, The Nutcracker Suite was bad, Dumbo was bad. You may have liked some of those movies, and that's great. I'm not trying to crap on your opinion. If you like them, that's awesome. I'm just saying, to me, Wrinkle in Time's bad, Nutcracker's bad, Dumbo's bad. I mean, they've just done, in the last couple of years, Disney Studios proper has put out some pretty questionable, shaky failures, to be honest with you, failures. But Lion King, they crushed it, in my opinion. So right now, to me, the biggest surprise, because I really thought, that after I saw it, I thought the critics were going to love it. And some do. but not nearly as many of them as I thought they would, and that's why it's sitting so low. So I'm going to say the bigger surprise to me is the Lion King scores. Donnie Yasu writes, they'll find the Snyder Cut if they storm Area 51. Good way to kind of meld two different stories in there, Donnie Yasu. All right, Epic Berserker writes, Thanos to Avatar, I hope they remember you. Here's the thing, though, Epic Berserker. Everybody was saying that, like, oh my God, this is going to blow away Avatar. And yet here we still are, and it still hasn't passed it. And again, if it does pass it, it'll barely do it. But if it does, it's inconsequential because Disney will just re-release Avatar. So when they're marketing Avatar 2, they can say, the sequel to the #1 box office film of all time. Don't underestimate how powerful that can be in a marketing campaign. They will do that. Suthius writes, mainstream cinemas is a fairly new thing in Cambodia. When I went in summer of 2007, I was at a restaurant watching the new Transformers on a TV. Can we say pirated? Now there are several new legitimate cinemas. That's amazing. First of all, I'm always fascinated by other cultures in general, Suthius. Always fascinated in general. But I particularly get interested when I find out about the difference for movie fans in different countries with their theatrical experiences and how it varies from country to country. Because being a North American, I just think of the movie-going experience one way. So to hear about other people having different types of experiences with it, to me, is really, really interesting, fascinating. So thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate that. All right. Warren Lucas writes, speaking of ROI, return on investment, 6 Conjuring films have grossed over $1.7 billion on a total of $126 million in production budgets. That is getting it done, no doubt. No doubt. There's been a movement, mostly led by Blumhouse and Jason Blum, but there's been a movement in horror films lately of small budget, reasonably, responsibly budgeted films that make ridiculous, proportionately to their budgets, ridiculous amounts of money. And this, Warren, is one of the more staggering statistics. $1.7 billion in total box office on $126 million combined production budget. That's insane. That's insane. How can you not look at that and acknowledge it's one of the most efficiently successful things out there? It is crazy, but it's really a movement in the horror genre today. And it's a movement that I think is really great. So well pointed out, Warren, well pointed out. All right. Max Gomez writes, have you seen Dark Knight on Netflix? If so, thoughts? Oh, not Dark Knight, sorry. Have you seen Dark on Netflix? If so, thoughts? No, I'm honestly, I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you, Max. Sorry about that. Matsiv Jada writes, biggest marketing budget equals those posters? Yeah, because the posters were not great. The posters were not great. So clearly that's not where the lion's share of their market, that $288 million in marketing budget with. That's a good observation, Matsiv. That's a good observation. All right, Suthius writes, hold a second. We had a little bit of a jump here. Hold a second. Where was... Okay, here we go. Suthius writes, you mean to tell me the actors who portray the hobbits aren't actually 4 feet tall and have big hairy feet? Oh, the deception. I'm speechless. That is actually a great analogy, Suthius. When doing my argument, I should have thought of that. You're right. When they did The Hobbit, they didn't actually get people who were 3 to 4 feet tall. They actually got other actors to play those characters in a fictional kind of way. That's actually a really good example. I should have thought of that myself. Clam6924 writes, hey, John, you are the king. Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate that, man. Since Sony has Peter Parker in the MCU making money, why don't they double down and do a live action Miles Morales win-win? Except I really don't think Miles Morales would make all that much money in a live action thing. And they're doing Miles Morales extremely well in the animated realm. Plus, I guarantee you a part of the agreement between Sony and Marvel is that Sony doesn't, as long as Sony has Spider-Man over in Marvel, Sony will not do a live action Spider-Man, even though the Spider-Man would be a Miles Morales or somebody else. It doesn't matter. Sony, I guarantee you a part of the deal between Marvel and Sony is that as long as Sony has their Peter Parker live action Spider-Man in Marvel, they will not confuse the audience. Sony will not confuse the audience by doing another live action Spider-Man, even if it goes by a different name. Animated is one thing, live action is something different. So number one, why would they do it? when they've got the Academy Award winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse stuff going on with Miles Morales. That's where they're going to put their attention. Number two, a Miles Morales Spider-Man live action, I don't think is going to make that much money. Number three, I don't think they even can do it because of the agreement with Marvel. Number four, understand that even as great as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is, I thought the third best movie overall of 2018. I thought the best comic book movie of 2018. Not Infinity War, not Black Panther, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was the best comic book movie of 2018. And I believe the number three best overall movie of the year. That movie but still $375 million at the box office. It was profitable. It made money. But, there's that. So, no, I don't think it makes a lot. I don't even think they can, and I don't think it makes a lot of sense for them to do it. And that's why they haven't done it. James Bonner writes, no question today, John. Just have a great day. Thank you so much, James. I appreciate that. I hope you have a great day as well. Have a great Monday. Queston Fisher writes, Krasinski has started shooting A Quiet Place 2. Yeah, that was brought up a little bit earlier. I'm very excited about it. Again, to me, A Quiet Place for me was the number one film of 2018. The top three for me in 2018 were A Quiet Place, Black Klansman, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Then number four was Green Book. Number five was I almost said A Quiet Place. Quiet Place number one. A Star Is Born was my number five. So that was my top five of the year, and I'm very, very excited to see their sequel. Matthew Murfield writes, what's your favorite scene from Spider-Man Far From Home? I can't, okay, I'll say this because I think my favorite scene in Far From Home might have, you know what? I can't say because it risks giving away a spoiler, and I can't do that right now. So I can't say. Sorry about that, man, but I can't say. I'm sitting here trying to think of a way that I can say it, but I can't formulate it clearly in my head right now as a way to put it without spoiling anything. So sorry, man, I got to take a pass on that. But I've seen it twice, and I'm going to go see it again. I really do like that movie. All right. Gay 10 Fowl writes, Far From Home is poised to do 1.1 billion plus, not 1.3. Don't forget China release was the week before, and domestically it was a 6 days opening. Captain Marvel was at 760 with a normal release, 1.14 billion. Yeah, but I honestly think Spider-Man Far From Home is going to have slightly better legs. For a movie that opened as big as it did, I think it's had pretty good legs so far. People are enjoying it. We don't have another major comic book movie. I mean, we have another major movie coming out this week in Lion King, but we don't have another major comic book movie coming out for a bit. So I still think 1.3. No, I'm not saying it will get to 1.3. Don't get me wrong. But whereas I thought before the potential was 1 billion, I now think the potential is 1.3. I don't think 1.3 is out of the realm of possibility. I'm not saying it will get there, but I think it's a possibility here. And your math is good. But I think we're going to see this thing have some pretty good legs. And we'll see. Again, I'm not sitting here guaranteeing it'll get to 1.3, not at all. 1.1, 1.2 might be in the realm. I'm just saying is, whereas I thought the potential before was 1 billion, now I think the potential is 1.3, and we'll see if that turns out or not. Film Fan Rant writes, hey, John, I always wanted to thank you for saving my life twice. It was indirect, but still you saved my life, literally, so thank you. I don't know how to respond to that, Film Fan Rant, but if what anything I do here on the show or any of the people in the film fan community have contributed to helping out you in your life and putting you in a better place, awesome. That's great. I'm humbled and thank you. And I'm glad whatever it was, whether it was a health issue, a mental issue, a situation in your life issue, whatever it was, I'm thrilled that the show and the community here have been able to be a positive impact for you in whatever way it was. So thank you for sharing that, man. That takes a lot to share something like that. So thank you. I appreciate it. I'm actually shaken. I'm actually shaken that you said that. So thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I hope you're in a much better place in your life today. Whatever it was, health-wise or whatever, I hope you're in a much better place today than wherever you were. All right. Mista47 writes, one of the worst memories I've ever seen was the Dahmer film with Jeremy Renner. Just trash. I couldn't finish it, but maybe I'll just rewatch it. I don't even remember if I saw it or not. But man, I'm telling you what, I've got movies like that too, mister. It's always such a shame because every time we watch a movie, we always want it to be great, unless you got some sort of agenda. Whenever we watch any movie, we want it to be great because we want to have a good time. And it always sucks when you get into a movie like that. Like I remember, to me, it was the movie 23 or whatever it was, where it was just all a bunch of little sketches and skits. Oh my God, it was so bad. I left. I've only left a small handful of movies in my life I've ever walked out of, but that was one that I absolutely had to do. Let's see. Where are we at here? Soundwave20 writes, just wanted to say, love your channel and always try to tune in for a bit each day. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Sound. It's always great, man. It's always great when somebody just wants to write and just say something nice. Thank you, dude. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. I hope you have a wonderful week, dude. All right. Uncharted Halo writes in. One of two. John, you slightly misunderstood. I was referring to pessimists who think adaptations are made purely for legitimization and that they want certain properties exclusive to their preferred medium. They don't seem to like the fact that film is more embraced by people than, say, video games. Well, I mean, that is how you've kind of framed it the way I answered it. The first, just to be fair, Uncharted. I was referring to pessimists who think that adaptations are made purely for legitimization. And again, I don't believe that's true. If there are people who feel that way, I don't agree with that at all. And they want certain properties exclusive to their preferred medium, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's if there are people like that, as you're saying, that is a ridiculous thing, because no matter if you have a favorite book called, I don't know, Jesse's Dick Hair. Okay, let's say there's a book called Jesse's Dick Hair. And that's the big popular book. It's one of your most beloved favorite books. You love Jesse's Dick Hair so much. It just speaks to you, you know. It speaks to you where you're at. It speaks your truth. It speaks your truth. So Jesse's Dick Hair is a book that you've loved your whole life. It's so ridiculous for anybody to get wound up or upset about it being put on a different medium. Because to me, I kind of look at that as I look at reboots. Who cares if they remake and reboot your favorite movie? If it sucks, you still have your original movie. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. And it's kind of ridiculous to me that anybody would look at it that way. And then in your second part there, they don't seem to like the fact that film is more embraced by people than, say, video games. I mean, I think there's something to that about every medium. I think there are people who don't like the fact that more people watch movies than read comic books. There are comic book fans that do not like the fact that, and try to deny the fact that far more people watch movies than read comic books. And the people who read comic books are a very small fraction of the overall people who see movies. I think there are people who are bitter that the fact that movies are far more popular than novels or books. I think there are people who are bitter that movies are bigger than this or that. I think that's true of everybody. Like, we all are protective of the things we love to some degree. So I can see that. I mean, I don't think that's a good way of looking at it, as you are suggesting. I think you're right. I don't think that's a good way of looking at it, but I can get it, at least at some point. Jeff Mitchell just sends a super chat. Thank you, Jeff. Marcos Batista writes, phone booth sequel with only Kiefer back in different place. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Suthius writes, I like your nose. There, my nice words for the day. I have never liked my nose. Despite the fact that, in training and stuff like that, I've had my nose broken several times. Once in football, once in training. Somebody accidentally gave me a good shot to the face. That's how I lost my one tooth too. Somebody accidentally in training gave me a really good kick to the face when they weren't supposed to. Anyway, I've never liked my nose. And you know what's funny? Everybody else in my family has a better nose than me. I think it's just the way it was broken. Suthius writes, Rub and Tug was my college nickname. You knew somebody was going to go in there with that. Quinn Fallfather 69 writes, Miami Vice the movie is my Man of Steel. You know what? I like that Miami Vice. Colin Farrell, Jamie Foxx. I like that movie better than most people do. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting, Quinn, that Miami Vice is like one of my all-time top 50 movies I've ever made. I'm not saying that, but I like that movie. I enjoyed it. And I know a lot of people crap on it, but for me, it was one that works. And clearly, that to you is your Man of Steel. And I'm glad you would like it, man, because I don't think it gets enough credit. Anyway, Jake writes, cut off your nose. to Spider-Face. Cut off your nose to Spider. Is that how it came out? Did I just mumble it? Was I talking so fast? I said, cut off your nose to Spider-Face? Did it come off as saying Spider-Face? It's kind of funny if I did. Rob J00 writes, hey, John, the film A Quiet Place 2 has begun filming, which we have addressed. I'm very excited about that. I love the first one so much. Suthius writes, where do we go here? Suthius writes, Boss Logic dropped a fan casting image of Mustafa Shakir, Bushmaster, and Luke Cage as Kraven. Pretty damn awesome. Any news on Kraven to be at San Diego Comic-Con? No, because nothing. Now, there was some talk for a while that Sony was pretty big on getting Kraven going. So as far as I know, they're still working on that, but there's been no official nuts of that. And Boss Logic, whatever he puts out, I haven't seen this image, but I'll be dying to see it because Boss Logic is just a treasure. Absolute treasure of the film fan community. I love his art, man. Suthius writes, have you seen side-by-side of scene of Fury and Endgame with helicopter crashing into building in background? With scene of Frozone looking for his suit and a helicopter crashes outside. Very cool. No, I don't even know what. No, I did not know that. If somebody put something like that together. I'll be honest with you, Suthius, I haven't even heard of that. So no, I'm going to have to say that I haven't, but that sounds, do me a favor. Can you email that to me? Just email me, john@thejohncampeashow.com, and just put in a, Frozone image or whatever in the subject line. Okay, if you've got your hands on that, Suthius, can you email it to me? Because I'd love to see that. Gaetan Fowl writes, Lashana Dulup movie on Netflix is so good. Yeah, somebody else was mentioning that one a little bit earlier. If that's the same one, the French submarine thriller, gotta admit, if it says submarine thriller, you've got my attention. Saturn Ye Man writes, one of two. Hey, John, I know you say when it comes to casting for a role, you don't care who it is as long as the actor is talented. I think you need to qualify that statement with 2 words, within reason. For example, I think John Goodman is a very talented actor, but he should never be cast to play the lead role in a biopic about Rosa Parks, unless the movie is meant to be weird, absurdist comedy. But see, that's the point, though, right? Saturday Man, that's the point. See, one of the reasons why I say I don't like getting into which X actor should play which X role, is because I don't know what the script is, right? So there could be some people, let's say, I don't know, let's say a Green Lantern movie's coming out, right? And they announce that Harrison Ford is going to play Green Lantern. Okay, that sounds weird. But I'm okay with it because, number one, I think Harrison Ford is a great, talented actor. But if they're casting him, that must mean that the script must call for a much older Hal Jordan or whichever Green Lantern. Maybe it's an older Guy Gardner. Maybe it's Kyle or whatever. It clearly means then that they are going for an older one. So, yeah, obviously it goes without saying within reason, but if they're going to cast somebody a certain way, I must assume then that because I don't know the specific nature of what the script is calling for in that character. So that's one of the big reasons. So yes, even if they, like you said yourself, unless the movie is meant to be a weird, absurdist comedy, you're absolutely right about that. But that's yet another reason why I go, hey, then if they're casting John Goodman to play Rosa Parks, that must tell us something about the script, right? That must tell us something about the script. So that exact thing that you just pointed out so accurately is one of the reasons why I just say, hey, look, as long as this is a talented actor, then being somebody who doesn't know the script, I don't know what the specific nuances they're going for in their character or whether they're doing something completely outside the box for it. Regardless, as long as it's somebody with talent, then I'm comfortable with it. Because you cast John Goodman, look, let's put it this way. Let's pretend King Kong Bundy was still alive, okay? Let's pretend the WWE wrestler King Kong Bundy was still alive. And they cast him to play Rosa Parks. Well, I'm uncomfortable with that because King Kong Bundy was not an actor, nor could he act. So, there. But since the script clearly calls for something in a way that is weird and absurdist comedy, I would be cool if they then got John Goodman because he is a talented, gifted performer and he'll make it work. But again, it's assuming then that the script must be a weird, absurdist comedy in a twisted sort of way, that they twist the reality and they turn it on its head and whatever. But then I got to assume that. So you see, that, as you so accurately just pointed out, is part of the reason why I say, as long as it's a talented actor, I'm good. Because I have no idea what the script calls for, so I just got to trust them that they're going to get the type of actor that they need for their script. And so as long as that actor they get is a talented, gifted performer, then I'm good with it. And I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt until I go and see it for myself. I may change my mind once I see it, but until I see it, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Anyway, that's sort of my thought on that. I hope that clarifies that, because you're absolutely right, but that's sort of part of my thinking already. And it's a good observation on your part. All right, thanks so much for that, good Canadian kid. All right, last few questions, guys. I'm going to ask, if you have not sent in a super chat yet, please don't send in any more. Please don't send in any more, because I want to wrap up. We've already gone over 2 hours. We're approaching 2 hours and 15 minutes. So let's just finish off the ones we have. Gaytan Fowl writes, Far From Home did $100 million abroad this weekend. $1.3 billion is impossible. I do not think it's impossible. Again, I'm not saying it's going to do it. Let's be clear about that. I'm not saying it's going to do it, but I think this thing's going to have better legs than everybody gives it credit for. Royce Freeman writes, if a film is a reboot, but a sequel also, why did they sometimes call it the same name as original, like Halloween, and new sequel being 2 instead of 3? Marketing. It's just better to call it Halloween, right? And when we see the movie, look, let's be honest here. The name of a movie is completely irrelevant. What you name a movie does not make a movie better and doesn't make a movie worse. It just doesn't. It's completely irrelevant. The name of a movie is nothing but a marketing tool. And they felt that just calling this most recent Halloween, just calling it Halloween was what was best for the marketing of it. And then calling this one Halloween 2 is the best one. To them, it's just for them. They want to separate it from the original Halloween while being a continuation is just a marketing tool. So I can only assume, Royce, that their thoughts are this is the best way to market it. And I think it's probably right. When you look at the success it had, it does kind of make sense. All right. Eliza Zalea writes, Chef is awesome. Thanks for recommending. Yeah, so for 2 things. Jon Favreau's movie Chef is great. All right, it's great. But he's also got a Netflix series that's it's a docu-series. It's not him playing a role. It's actually Jon Favreau, the chef who was his main consultant in doing the Chef movie, and they get other celebrities in, they just make dishes. It's great. It's really fun to watch. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But yes, do follow Eliza's recommendation here. The movie Chef with Jon Favreau is fantastic. It's really fantastic. It'll make you hungry and it'll make your heart happy. Go check it out if you haven't yet. All right, let's see. Nick writes, you gonna storm Area 51? No, I think that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, to be honest. All due respect for anybody else who's doing it, I gotta be honest, I gotta share my heart with you. I gotta share my truth. My truth is, I think that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard, but whatever. Epic Berserker writes, Jesse Dick Hair. Jesse's Dick Hair. That's the name of the book. Everybody loves it. Mark it down. Hollywood, copyright that crap. And then finally, Benjamin Michael just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you so much for that, Benjamin. All right, guys. That'll wrap it up for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much, guys, for being here and being a part of it. Don't forget, we'll be back again tomorrow. Robert Meyer Burnett, assuming he's finished this commercial gig, he'll be back on with me tomorrow. We look forward to seeing you guys then. And once again, guys, don't forget, if you're going to be in and around the San Diego area going to Comic-Con, Friday, 11 a.m. at the library, we're doing our annual Masters of the Web. After Endgame, where does the comic book genre go from here, with myself, Kyle Newman, Chris Gore, and of course, Christian Harloff. Make sure you guys come out and join us there. And I'll be making an announcement in the next, I said I was going to do it today, but I still haven't figured it out. So probably tomorrow I'll make an announcement about when and how we're going to do a meet and greet for Rob and me when we're in San Diego. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.